We'll call today's Housing, Urban Development, and Zoning Committee meeting to order. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderman Cone. Present. Alderwoman Schweitzer.
Present.
Alderwoman Keys.
Here.
Vice Chair Saunier. Alderman Browning.
Present.
Alderman Aldridge. Chair Clark Hubbard.
Here.
Vice Chair Saunier. Alderman Aldridge. We have five present. We have a quorum.
All right, with that, I'll accept a motion to approve the minutes from Tuesday, February 17th, 2026.
Second.
It was moved by Alderman Cone and seconded by Alderwoman Schweitzer that we approve the minutes from Tuesday, February 17th, 2026. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderman Cone. Aye. Alderwoman Schweitzer.
Aye.
Alderwoman Keys. Vice Chair Saunier. Alderman Browning. Aye. Alderman Aldridge. Chair Clark Hubbard.
Aye.
Alderwoman Keys.
Aye.
Vice Chair Saunier. Alderman Aldridge. We have 5 aye votes.
All right, with that, we successfully approved the minutes from Tuesday, February 17th, 2026. Alderwoman Schweitzer, you are recognized on Board 61.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman and members of the committee. I appreciate you all being here today to hear Board Bill 161 for the second time. Today, we have many of the departments here that are looking for reallocations and to reallocate some of the funds allocated to their departments for either internal use or external use, and why those funds are needing to be reallocated today. What I've asked for people to be ready to do, and Caitlin Smith in the mayor's office to talk about, is really a line by line of the allocations that are being reallocated, so that we can all feel comfortable that every organization is on the same page, understands what's happening. Every department, every contract is, all of our I's are dotted and T's are crossed, as people would say. So with that, before we adopt the committee substitute, because it is possible we'll need a different committee substitute, I want to just move through the fact sheet as we have it, and I'll turn it over to Caitlin Smith from the mayor's office, if that's all right with you, Madam Chairwoman.
Yep, that's fine.
Thank you very much.
And I think what's going to be best as we are moving through this line by line is that we are going to let Policy Director Caitlin Smith lead the conversation, call up the various speakers, and then hear from questions from our colleagues after that in between.
Perfect.
Before I do that, just so we can make sure, is there anybody in the room that wants to sign up to speak publicly? Make sure you're signed in on the sheet and online. If you want to speak during public comment, please raise your hand. This is the part that we talk about all the time. This is a very important part, and only in our committee hearing that we can hear from the public. I just shared that with James this morning that didn't even know that these meetings were public. So the way I repeat that is for, thank you for being here this morning. James is Alderman Browning's constituent. So with that, go ahead, the truth.
I do.
Please proceed.
Hi, I'm Caitlin Smith. I'm the policy advisor to the mayor. I first just want to start out with some thanks, first of all, to Alderman Schweitzer for her due diligence in carrying this bill. Secondly, to all of our departments for working with the compliance team to make sure go through all of their funds. They've been going through bi-weekly and some the departments weekly, and seeing what funds are at risk of not being fully spent. This is our first ARPA reappropriation, that wasn't right before the deadline, and over an abundance of caution, we will likely aim to have at least one one more reappropriation bill to ensure that we're catching everything, just so everyone knows this is not like the last chance dollar to be reappropriated. There will more than likely be one more out of an abundance of caution, again, once we are back in session. And that is also when we will have all the departments come forward like asked for last week, Alderman Aldridge. And then we also want to thank all of the organizations that had contracts with our departments and have worked with them throughout this entire process. First of all, the departments have been coordinating, like I said, with the city councilor's office through, and then they have also had meetings with all of these organizations, multiple meetings, a lot of them in around September or to November, had a longer hour-long meeting with each organization going through, and if there was any way to do the contract so that they could use the funds, et cetera. And then the last thing is the process that I'm thinking here is we will go through each of the departments behind me one by one, and then we can go ahead and dismiss them, let them go work on spending this money. And so if you have any questions while they're here, please ask it. We're gonna go DHS, then CDA, then OVP, and then we'll kind of go over all of that have single, and all of those directors are on standby for if we have questions, but I'm gonna try to answer them unless you have more. So first off, we're gonna have DHS come up.
Okay, good morning, everyone.
I don't have to swear you in, but just before you speak, please be sure to state your name and your title for the record.
Sure, my name is Adam Pearson. I am the Director of the Department of Human Services for the city. Oh, I'm sorry, you said you don't have to swear me in? Okay. Okay, well, I didn't know the flow, so did you all have questions for me, or did you want me to? Each one, okay. Gotcha. So for the reappropriated ARPA funds, we have several different groups of projects that I'll go through. First and foremost, I did want to give public recognition to folks in our department who have been carrying the load of many of these projects, particularly Valerie Russell, who is our deputy director, who has been coordinating all of these projects from the jump. St. Louis Area Agency on Aging, Division for Homeless Services. So I think we got a fairly significant chunk of our when this, when the money was first released, and so it's been a labor of love going through this work with our subrecipients to make sure that we've spent down quite a bit of it. So the first category, case management and program operations, we are looking to reappropriate $100,220 of this. This was a contract between us and United Way of Greater St. Louis, and so we took on a few different special projects in collaboration with the United Way. A lot of this money was used to support the salary of one particular team member that has helped to sort of coordinate the administrative work of shuttling all these projects through. The United Way ended up finding some additional money for this person's salary, and so they didn't need the ARPA money that was going to go towards the salary, and so this was previously discussed with I want to say more than a year ago, and so it is not a surprise to them that this money is being reappropriated, and so we did not need to spend this money down. Did you want me to pause after each one so you all could ask questions, or just go through?
We can ask questions after you get through your line item.
You got it. We launched the next one is mortgage assistance. We launched a mortgage assistance program that we appropriated around $1.9 million for years ago. The vast majority of that money was spent down. We did have a contract with Park Central Development Company. We gone back and forth with this organization over the past couple of years on the rate of their spend down for mortgage assistance. I think one of the major findings that they saw is that within the region that they operate, providing services, economic development assistance, those sorts of things, the vast majority of the people indicated that they needed rental assistance, not mortgage assistance. And so even though a large pot of money was designated towards this project, the need on the ground was actually something other than what was appropriated. So Park Central was not able to spend down the full amount of this contract. We couldn't figure out another use for the money that was similar to mortgage assistance, and so we are reappropriating the $377,882.84 for this project. The emergency shelter line, we are reappropriating $25,000 from that one. This was from a contract that had already ended. It had already expired. There was actually, we discovered this additional money after an internal audit with the comptroller's office, that there was a double payment made in February of 2023. And so this is $25,000 that were not accounted for, that we could not then go back and spend on this expired contract, and so we are reappropriating that. Wraparound services for $29.70. There's a contract we had with Ptolemy, and so Ptolemy was a software that we had been using for a while to give our department and several other departments a better understanding of some of the renter needs in the community, some of the housing shortage needs in the community. It helped us to quantify and visualize the number of evictions, for example, happening in St. Louis City, the folks, the property owners who were evicting at the highest rates, those sorts of things, which helped us to work in collaboration with various housing organizations that were doing some advocacy work. So we had a great partnership with them. There was $29.70 that was not spent down, that we found out was actually an error in Oracle from years ago that could not be reconciled. And so we do have that money that is being reappropriated. For targeted cash assistance, this is $14,573.72. This was in partnership with the Treasurer's Office, where we were working with them to distribute debit cards to folks in the community. A lot of folks in the community ended up using the gift cards for various purposes. When they distributed the gift cards, people received them but did not spend down on the gift cards, and so there was some money that was unspent in the community that we could then take back after a period of time in which the cards were not used. We made sure to give folks notice that they had the money on the gift cards. Don't want you to lose it, but folks still wouldn't spend it down. And so after a period of a couple of years, we were able to recapture that funding back. And so that is that amount that is being reappropriated. The largest sum is for the direct support care workers, and so this is a pot of money that went to the St. Louis Area Agency on Aging. One of the needs identified a while back was the fact that we have a growing senior population in the city of St. Louis. Indeed, within the next 10 years, 1/4 of the whole St. Louis population will. There's also a shortage locally and nationally of direct support workers and direct care workers who are able to offer seniors and people with disabilities round-the-clock assistance with activities of daily living. And so one of the labor gaps that we identified through some research is that there is a shortage of these labor workers. A lot of seniors with disabilities, they need to be independent at home. And so we wanted to incentivize more recruitment of these direct support workers and retention of these support workers as well, hence the R&R term, Project R&R. And so we appropriated $1.2 million for this project. We spent $580,000 of this project, realized that we were not going to be able to spend the rest because a lot of folks simply did not sign up for the program. And so we had a process by which if you were able to work a period of time doing the 250 hours, doing the direct support work, you could get paid a $500 gift certificate or a gift card. For every 250 hours of work, you would get paid $500 more up to a cap of $2,500. We engaged in a very rigorous marketing campaign for this with Organization Forward across St. Louis County, and we still did not get the uptick that we were hoping to see with the number of folks who wanted to stay on the job, the number of new folks who wanted to be recruited into the direct care service work. And so given that we couldn't really move that needle like we wanted to, we are going to reappropriate that money, which is $690,436.71. The last pot is the Impacted Tenants Fund. The administrator of this program is Employment Connections. Employment Connections indicated that they wouldn't be able to spend down the full administrative expenses in time before we had to, ultimately get the money reappropriated. Just as a reminder, Employment Connections, the ARPA money that we have entered into a contract with them for serves as the administrative dollars to actually administer the project. No ARPA funds are being used to pay out to the impacted tenants in the that is a different pot of money. And so the administrative funds, they're not going to spend down that full amount, which leaves us a balance of $10,000. And we have discussed this several times with Employment Connections, and they're okay. So I believe that is it for me, and it is not. Okay, I didn't have that one in my notes. Yes, so the Real Estate Tax Assistance Program, we spoke with the administrator, and total for that one is $2,090.28. We wouldn't be able to spend down these funds. We have talked about this with the administrator of the program in several conversations, and we are on the same page about that.
I'm looking for that one on the committee substitute exhibit. You all see that one? And who is the administrator for that program?
That is
Real Estate Tax Assistance
yeah,
Program.
that is
Oh, I see it now, 7159. I see it. 2000. Yeah. And who did you, it's on the second page of it. And you said who was the administrator of that program that you spoke with?
Let's see here. Give me 1 second. I know the appraiser's office was a big part of that. My apologies. Let me circle back around on that.
You're fine. We definitely want to take our time with this part because of some of the concerns that were uplifted with the organizations and the program management. So I'm glad that you're going through it line by line and saying what was administrative, what was really impacting the need, right, and how you all were able to come to these figures.
While I'm waiting on that confirmation, And take
We can
any
go with-
questions you.
Perfect. Alderman Cone? I don't have any questions. Okay. Alderwoman Keys?
Collector of Revenues Office.
The Collector of Revenues Office is the administrator of that, and they stated that they wouldn't be able to spend this down.
Correct.
Alderwoman Keys, did you have any questions?
No, I did not. Thank you so much. I had a delay in the transmission. Thank you.
Okay. Alderman Browning?
Thank you, Director. Appreciate the explanation of each of these line items. Just wanted to touch base on the mortgage assistance item. You mentioned that there was a greater need for rental assistance than mortgage assistance. Is there any reason that this money could not be reallocated to go to rental assistance?
Yeah, so that is a very good question, and that is actually the question that we asked, I believe, when we started talking about the reappropriation process, previous mayoral administration. We got some feedback that the uses for those funds were not similar enough to where we could slide that over into rental assistance. And I think at one point we had considered recommending another board bill to get the money transferred to that use. But ultimately it was decided that we would hold on to it for reappropriations for another use.
And I think that touches on the trickiness of when we're working with federal dollars, that there are a lot of restrictions and very, very specific directives on how the money can be used. So what I'm hearing from you is that it just wasn't going to qualify, that we could just slide that money over. It just wasn't a similar enough use.
That's correct. I would have loved, and I think the community would have loved to see that money to rental assistance, but we just couldn't reconcile it.
I appreciate that. I think working with federal dollars is a lot different than working with, just general tax dollars or anything else. All sorts of different rules that have to apply. And so this has been difficult to spend down ARPA money because it has so many rules. And I know that each department is doing a lot of work to make sure that they're in compliance with those extra guidelines, as well as getting that money out the door. So I appreciate your efforts and don't have any more questions.
Thank you.
Right. Yeah, we did. We had that question several times years back, earlier on, even in this committee about that. So I know the attempt was made, again, highlighting the need, and still there is a need for rental assistance. So
Still a need, yes, ma'am.
thank you. Alderman Aldridge?
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Alderman Browning asked my question of why it wasn't shifted to rental assistance. And as you were speaking, I guess it sparked something, and I don't know if this is for you or maybe the legalese. So we're not able to shift it from mortgage to rental assistance, which in my head is still the same idea of helping people to keep their homes or stay in their homes. But we are able to shift it from mortgage assistance to water, which is housing to infrastructure. How are we able to shift it from housing to infrastructure in the same, I guess?
Sure.
Thank you, Alderman Aldridge. That's a great question. So the main point of this is that with Treasury guidelines, all of the appropriations had to be done, contracts in place by the end of 2024. Is that correct? And in 2024. And then the additional additional Treasury guidelines said that money could be used as a way to reimburse kind of lost revenue related to the COVID experience, if you will. And with that, the water division and the lost revenue directly tied to that. So that's why it's possible to go to the water division and not to another contract. That would be a new appropriation. If anyone wants to add to that, Keelan Smith might be able to even do a better job explaining.
Yeah. I'm just curious, I mean, if people are getting, kicked out of their homes or don't have housing, I'm assuming the city would lose revenue and taxes, like property taxes or...
part of that is that would happen now. Everything has to be from before 2024 that we can revenue, or December 31st, 2024 revenue replacement. So, and we can't retroactively say that that was for 2024, that someone like lost their home back then and we lost taxes. That isn't something that the Treasury guidelines accepts. But it is, if we can directly show invoices that the water division had to spend money or lost money because of the pause on turning off water, that falls under Treasury guidelines.
Okay.
Does that help?
A little bit. I mean, a little bit. I would say, I mean, what COVID was 2020, I mean, I don't see how we couldn't say, well, maybe loss of population of people losing their homes or, you know, relocating because of the expenses of their homes. You know, we lost, the city lost money, just like we're saying we lost money with water that.
Yeah, there hasn't been a governmental census since 2020, so we have no like real, from the government point of view, proof on like who exactly was lost. I also have both Nicholas and Patrick from the city councilor's office online if they have anything additional that they would like to add. They might be raising their hands. Nicholas or Patrick? Okay. Yes. Thank you. Yeah. Yeah, if you have anything additional that you would like to add, Nick, that would be fantastic. Thank you.
Great. Hey, everyone. So to switch to rental assistance, you would need an eligible rental assistance contract entered into before the end of 2024 that is still in effect at this time.
And did we have any, through any ARPA funds, did we do rental assistance through ARPA funds?
So I know that there were ARPA contracts for rental assistance. The question is whether those contracts are still in effect today and whether that provider had the capacity to take on additional funds at this time. So I know the DHS had conversations around that, and I'll defer to them on that topic.
Yeah, I think the decision point then was a little bit different than the decision point. So back then, the question was, would we, I think if I'm remembering correctly, it was, would we need to make this change in a board bill to shift from mortgage assistance to rental assistance? If I'm remembering correctly, I don't think without a board bill, we would have been able to just move that money over, since the language in the actual board bill was different between mortgage assistance and rental assistance. I think the decision was made with the previous mayor's office that it seemed like we would just want to stick with the current rental assistance contract that we had and not do an additional board bill for that.
Gotcha. And that education, I guess, is important. Sticking, I guess, to the rental assistance. So we currently have, did the rental assistance go through, I guess, your department?
Yeah.
Do we still have rental assistance money with the vendor? Have all that money been spent?
So the new rental assistance program that we just launched is in collaboration with Recovery Office, and that is a different funding source. It's not ARPA money. The previous rental assistance project that we launched was with CDBG CV money. I think the previous rental assistance projects that we had were with CARES Act money, if I'm not mistaken. We are not currently operating the CARES Act and CDBG CV rental assistance money. We've spent all that down.
But there was no ARPA funds used for rental assistance. I heard the different pots, CBG, the CARES Act. There was no ARPA fund used for rental assistance.
I don't believe we used ARPA for rental assistance, but I can get some confirmation. I know it was CARES Act and CDBG for sure.
Okay. Yeah, that would be helpful to just know if we did use ARPA funds, because if we did, and it sounds like we, you know, that ultimately we have to make sure that there's an open contract or that we use funds for it. It would just be interesting to see if we did use ARPA funds for rental assistance. What was, I guess, the advertisement for? Because I could tell you now, I can go knock some doors in my ward, and I can get some people that need mortgage assistance on the north side. So I don't understand how we couldn't find individuals that need mortgage assistance in 2025 or 6 as bread and eggs going up. So what was the advertisement for trying to get the word out around mortgages?
Yeah, so the organization we partnered with, Park Central Development Corporation, they have a footprint in many neighborhoods. I want to say it's almost 20, maybe 20 neighborhoods around St. Louis. Certainly looking at, Forest Park South sort of area.
And I love Park Central, but not north. Was there any?
Of what all of the activities were.
Gotcha. Like I said, especially now, I think before we just move money, I think post tornado of like in those areas, at least people that still have, their homes that are, trying to spend on the rebuild and can use those funds of like mortgage assistance to help with their mortgage or keep their home on top of knowing that they have to like repair their home. I think I don't see how we couldn't figure out how to get that mortgage assistance in people's hands. I mean, like I say, I probably can make a phone call and find 10 people right now that'd be like, yeah, I need mortgage assistance in my neighborhood that are struggling to, pay all their bills and keep up with that. So, the direct support care worker, you said y'all work with Forward to advertise. What did that kind of look like to get that advertisement out? Because I think honestly, even with the mortgage assistance that I'm leading to, I think sometimes, and we all are stretched in, like, I appreciate the great work that you do and your department do. Sometimes I think we struggle as a city to get the word out on some of these programs so that people know about it. So what did that advertisement, I guess, look like from Forward to get the word out on the direct support care workers, if you can just elaborate a little bit on that?
Absolutely. So, that was a major need that was identified to recruit some of these direct care support worker team members. And because we understood that it was going to be hard to reach some of these staff, what we did with Forward was they underwent a process by which they would call each direct care support worker agency in St. Louis and informed them about these gift cards. And so that when they were potentially recruiting staff or going through the interview process or just, working with their staff at their daily operations and in staff meetings, they could inform their staff about this project. And so there was direct outreach to a majority, if not all, of the agencies in St. Louis that do that direct care type of work. There were also flyers distributed to some of these organizations. There was, I think, print media that was done. We put it up on the website, sent out the website link to register for the program. I think there was a pretty aggressive effort to recruit as many people as possible, but one of the things we found is that I think that folks didn't stick around in that 250 hours long to start getting the gift cards. And if you are not aware of the industry, it is extremely hard work. We're talking about folks who have to transfer individuals, from wheelchairs to beds and do bathing and dressing and cooking for people. 250 hours may not sound like a lot, but it is tough. And we required it to be 250 workers at a single agency for the first $500, not bouncing around. And so that's, one of the reasons that we wanted to spend down, just because it is very laborious work. It's challenging. We just couldn't generate the amount of interest that we had hoped.
And then my last question, could you a little bit talk about the real estate property tax assistance? Again, just thinking about how much is a need there for people in their property taxes. As you was having conversation, I guess, with the collector of revenue, did he go into details of, why they wouldn't be able to spend that funds now?
Yeah, so that is, I'm going to be very transparent. That's a project that I know least about. And so I could just kind of give a broader sort of orientation to the project. And so we wanted to assist seniors in particular with property tax assistance. And it was indicated to us a long time ago that was a major need in the community. Working closely with the assessor's office, we made sure to implement a program by which folks could get that assistance. I don't think that there were enough individuals who took advantage of the program. There were some dollars left over. If I could, I would love to submit something to you in writing, some additional details about that program, some of the specifics about recruitment and the actual process by which we were able to assist with the tax sales and all of that.
That's all my questions for this department. Thank you also, Director, for all the great work you do.
Thank you.
Thank you. Vice Chair Sangay.
Thank you, Madam. Thank you, Dr. Pearson. I really appreciate this amended walkthrough. I do think this fact sheet is a little bit clearer to see the very detailed breakdown. I think my questions are nothing different than what my colleagues have stated, so I won't be redundant. I do, as someone who doesn't represent the North Side but represents the South Side, I can tell you that there are many South Side residents who I know could also use mortgage assistance. So I'm also a little confused as to why we couldn't get that out. I don't have a problem with moving the funds. I guess my question is just that you did speak with the grantee and confirm that they are unable to expend these funds by the contract deadline.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
I do, I sang the praises of Valerie Russell at the beginning of my presentation, and she has once again come through for me. If I could read a text from her about the RETAF program. The Collector of Revenue Office handled the funds to pay the delinquent real estate taxes. Park Central Development handled outreach to homeowners who are in the delinquent taxes listings and collected all required eligibility documents for that. And so that is a little bit more detail about what that partnership looked like, but still I would like to submit something to you all in writing just so you can see some specifics.
I'm a huge advocate for the RETAF program. It's definitely been responsible for keeping some of my longest time residents, usually who are seniors that can't, their taxes are rising, but their income is fixed. Many of them have been able to get support from the program. And I think that someone from Park Central is online as well. So I will just defer to them and thank you for being here today.
Sure.
And just to piggyback up there, just for clarity, what you're saying, Dr. Pearson, is that this $2,000 wasn't going towards payments or arrearages that the RETAF program helps with. It was more on the administrative side.
That is my understanding.
Okay. That'll definitely make a difference, I think, to many of us, again, who know the need. I think that making sure that I'm glad we're having these conversations. It's not that we picking at it, but since we are out on the ground with our constituents and hear these needs daily, it's important for us to advocate this the only way we can, right? And so for me, many of my questions were already asked, but I would be remiss if I just did not ask for public clarity on this St. Louis Area Agency on Aging, knowing the work, knowing that Annalise and her team answer every call immediately immediately. It ain't no other way to put it. I know the work that they do at that agency, and they are the only entity, agency, organization that does that work for seniors here in the city of St. Louis. So this direct support care workers, for me, and this amount of money, knowing the way I lean on her alone, probably, I wish she was here or somebody from, not that we don't trust what you're saying, Dr. Pearson, you know that, but I just would want to know that there's no other way, knowing through the guidelines that were stated here legally, that a St. Louis Area Agency on Aging could use that money. Again, because I know the need. So if you have any specific caseworker, I mean, if they found another funding source to pay those caseworkers, so that would give me some assurance that the work is not stopped or won't be compromised through this. That would help, but if not, maybe we can get the answer by the end of the meeting. I know we have other speakers.
Yeah, I don't have any additional feedback, but yeah, you're exactly correct. The St. Louis Area Agency on Aging, some phenomenal work, and especially forward with this program. I wish more people would have taken advantage of it, seeing as though we do have a aging population.
Yeah.
I think it would have been beneficial, but unfortunately, we just didn't get the folks to sign up for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just, I get the administrative side. I don't have any problem with pulling from that. But if these funds can in any way, in any of the discussions that we have, and not just in your department, but any of the departments, if they are directly taken from the work, from the impact on our residents and our constituents, then I think that's a different, I am personally, I'm not speaking for anybody else, I just feel like that's a different conversation and taken away from administrative costs.
Sure.
Second, I feel the same way.
Okay. All right. So with that, if you have any closing, and I just want to make sure, because Dr. Pearson probably will be needing to leave after this. So does anyone have any follow-up questions before? Okay. All right. Thank you, Dr. Pearson.
Thank you.
Chairwoman, if I may, as the committee's been asking questions, I've been taking notes and following up directly with organizations and getting, in writing feedback from them, either confirming or asking questions about these amounts if they have any. So just so you know, that work is happening, and have taken note, what was said that would be provided in writing to this committee, so that we make sure all of that happens, ideally by the end of the committee hearing, but if not, after the committee hearing, if we need more time. So thank you so much for your diligence, everyone, so far.
Thank you.
We'll now have CDA come up and they'll go line by line, present questions again, if that works. Great, thank you.
Good morning, Honorable Committee. Matt Moak, CDA. Just want to go over this morning an overview of the programs that we have been forced to terminate or move towards.
Excuse me. Could you just?
I'm sorry.
Introduce yourself and speak directly into the mic.
Okay.
Just so we can all hear you online.
Good morning, committee. Matt Moak, Director of CDA. All right, thank you.
I think you can proceed. We were trying to turn the mic up just a bit so we could, okay.
Oh, okay, thank you.
So we're ready for you to begin.
Okay. So I'd just like to give an overview this morning of progress we made since I've been down at CDA in terms of identifying programs that we did not think were going to be able to spend down. And of course, as you all know, we have a considerable amount of money at CDA that we're speaking for, so our number is fairly large. And up to date, we had 11 total programs of the 115 total programs that we have at CDA that we considered for termination. due to lack of spending or other circumstances. We ended up moving against 8 of those programs, meaning for 3 of those programs, once I reached out to the entity of the program, they came back to me with essentially a plan to spend down the money that for now I was satisfied with. So I backed away from termination of those programs. Of the remaining 8, 7 are moving forward. One of them, in the last week or so, we've decided to unterminate a North Newstead Association program and allow the amendment of their contract to expand their scope of work so they can continue to spend down their ARPA money. So if you'd like, I can go through them individually at a time. The first program on my list is the Early Childhood Support Program. It had a $570,000 award that was targeted toward credentialing child care providers in qualified census tracts. Good program. They contacted CDA in late December or so to say they were going to have a problem spending down the total $570,000 award. At that time, they indicated to us they thought they could spend $150,000. Subsequently, within the last 3 weeks or so, they indicated to me they would only be able to spend down $125,000. So at that point, I indicate to them, we're going to let you spend that $125,000 down to further the program purposes, but we're going to take the remaining $445,000 back, which is what is in the bill, for repurposing. I've grouped a couple programs together under affordable housing production and preservation, which you have there before you. A total of $335,238.82. Both of these programs were with Horizon Housing. They agreed in July of 2025 to terminate a fire damaged and tornado damaged property renovation on 4400 West Florissant. That was $200,000. And then more recently, they contacted us about a vacant unit turn project on Gravois and indicated they would not spend down $135,238.92. So both of those were moving to, both the total amount, $335,238, we're moving to repurpose. The next 2 programs on my list are referred to as being under Proactive Development Fund, LRA Development Fund, and Preservation of Historic Neighborhoods. I can condense that down and call all of it construction. The first project was an Urban League Village project behind their main headquarters that was tornado damaged, and the construction was not going to proceed. That was $348,000, of which we had advanced Urban League $174,000, or 50% of that amount. We terminated the program, and I reached out to Michael Holmes at Urban League, and very professionally, he returned the advance for half of that amount, and we're going to repurpose those funds. The second piece of the construction is St. Joseph Housing Initiative. This was for 6 individual single-family units. It never got off the ground. Unfortunately, I really don't have any background on why that was. But when I went down to CDA, it was made known to me that essentially they were backing away from the 89,994. They had a roughly $18,000 advance that was returned to us on that project. So total in the construction repurpose area of $437,994. Under neighborhood beautification, I have 2 awards. The first award was to SLACO, and it was for $479,297 for neighborhood beautification, essentially cleanup efforts or tire removal, just different things to clean up the neighborhood. This program has received some publicity, but certainly it never got off the ground. It was what we called a zero spend program, and it had some grant compliance issues as well. So we moved quickly to terminate this program. I want to say on December 16th, I sent the letter out on that. Subsequently, SLACO retained counsel who contacted me mainly about the advance, because dispute the wisdom or non-wisdom of making an advance, but we did make one for $119,824.25, which is ARPA money that needs to be returned to CDA and has not been returned to date. The second beautification program with North Newstead Association, their CEO, Constance Sue, came down to see us in early January of 26 to let us know they were not going to be moving forward with that program. And that amount, the repurpose amount, it was just under $500,000 total that was awarded. They had spent roughly 40% of that, but the 274,308.92 number in unspent ARPA funds has been indicated to us, of course, that is not going to be going forward, so we're seeking to repurpose that. Finally, in the CDA capacity building program, also with North Newstead, again, after the CEO came to see us and indicating they were going to be pausing programmatic activities, we are seeking to repurpose that as well. That one has taken a little bit of a turn, and that within the last week or 10 days, we've agreed to explore amending their contract to expand the scope of work beyond what was originally contracted for North Newstead and allow them to spend that money down. And so that particular program I note today, but it is not before you in terms of repurposing the money. I'm happy to take any questions.
So with that agreement, Mr. Moak, what you're saying is this figure is going to change.
The what? The what?
When you said that the agreement to work for their contract for the support of the CDCs that you have discussed with them, is that going to make this number on this exhibit change?
That's the hope, yes.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. You're speaking about a North Newstead contract?
I'm speaking about yes, he just said he spoke with Constance.
Right. So there were two, and I think there's one that can't be fulfilled and one that they believe could be fulfilled. So in the committee substitute, it reflects, which we haven't adopted because I want to make sure that if there's any further changes, we just adopt one committee substitute to make it easier. But there's one where in the past there were, in the current bill, there are two. So only one of those is being reallocated at this time.
So just making sure I'm looking at the right thing. I'm looking at the committee substitute exhibit, and it has the two in here with this $633,000 figure that Mr. Moak just spoke about maybe changing due to his conversation. So
the fact sheet, if you're looking at that one just reflects the one contract, not both. We definitely want to get all of these little details right, which is another reason we're just taking time before adopting a new committee sub.
Okay, maybe I'm gonna look through. Alderman Cone. Thank you. Alderwoman Keys.
No questions, thank you.
Alderman Browning.
Thank you, Director. So a few of these funds look like they were going towards housing projects, and it sounds like the tornado damaged the units beyond what would have been able to be achieved with the money. Is that accurate?
Yes. I mean, the construction projects were just not going to proceed forward because of the damage. It's on at least two of those projects, yes.
I think Mike, personally, when the tornado happened, I thought of all the money that had been allocated from the American Rescue Plan Act and earmarked for some of these neighborhoods that ended up getting hit, and I wondered how much of our work may have been erased by the tornado, and that was a huge concern of mine. But also, it sounds like some work hadn't even begun yet, and so at this time, we're actually able to reallocate the funds towards another use because even though that building is no longer going to be able to be fixed, thankfully the money had not been spent yet, so it wasn't removed by the tornado.
As I looked at the construction, I think one of the things that we're still running into is that to the extent we would want to go back and repurpose funds in construction, there's just not enough time, really. And so that's causes us consternation as well, because these are all good projects, but we're running out of time to do construction.
I appreciate you saying that. They were all good projects, and construction is something that depends on a lot of variables, and it's not always easy to get projects happen. Even brand new construction projects on absolutely cleared land will hit hurdles that make the project then fail. And so when you're dealing with especially like stabilization or other unit turns, there's a variety of things that can go wrong or make it difficult to do on a certain timeline, or the cost ends up soaring well above what the money allocated would help achieve. So I can appreciate what happened there, even if it is unfortunate. Jumping down, I want to dig into what happened with the SLACO contract,
Okay.
Because that sounds complicated. So what I'm hearing is that you called it a zero spend program. Can you expand on that?
Sure. The people helping us with the ARPA helped me identify some of the programs on our vast CDA list that were called zero spends. I mean, we weren't seeing any money, at least to date, as of December of 25, going out the door. So obviously that was a red flag that we not necessarily we're sure going to have an issue, but we likely were going to have an issue. And that program was one of them. So talking around with my people at CDA2, I learned that they had done site visits with SLACO, had some interventions, if you will, to determine where they were with things. And not only were we zero spend, not getting invoices, but there was compliance issues within the program itself in terms of procurement, in terms of things that they should be doing under the CBA guidelines that were not necessarily ideal, let's say. And it wasn't long after I looked at it that news stories began to break, true or false, about the condition, about the situation at SLACO. So it was sort of it's unfortunate, but it was sort of a no-brainer for us in terms of we need to repurpose that money.
Yeah, and I'm certainly not looking to drag anyone through the mud here. I think it's important knowledge to what we're trying to do here, which is that if the money doesn't get spent, then we have to send it back to the federal government. And so we're trying to make sure we don't, we really don't want to lose any of this money. We want it to go somewhere that it can be effective. And when you see something like a zero spend program happening with months to go now before we have to send that money back, you've got to take some action. So I can appreciate that as well. Last question is on North Newstead to see if they can spend it down.
Correct. So the beautification program, as we refer to it, there's a $17,000 advance out there to North Newstead right now. They could still spend down for program activities, and if they do, we will pay it. But that program is not going to go forward. The other program, rate capacity building, we were limited under the contracts in terms of the activities there that we contracted for. The organization has now indicated they'd like to do something beyond that, and we're amenable to amending the contract to expand the scope of work to allow them to do so. Obviously, when we do so, we're seeking, and we're getting at this point representations that it'll be a full spend down. There's roughly $260,000 left on that capacity building contract.
Okay, thank you for that additional information. I don't have any more questions this time.
Alderman Aldridge.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. You just said something that was interesting that I think goes back to that mortgage assistance and said it couldn't be done because it wasn't in the scope of work. But it sounds like with the North Newstead, you're able to amend the contract to be able to change their scope of work. Why is it, and maybe this is a Caitlin or a lawyer question, why is it that we can't amend Park Central contract to add rental assistance to the mortgage assistance?
I don't really have that answer. I
guess
heard you speaking of it before, obviously, but
I mean, when you said you're going, and it's not for you, but I just
Right.
want to get on record. And first off, thank you, Commissioner Director, because you just stepped into this role, and you've done a lot of great work already for the city, and I look forward to more. But when you had said you were able to amend a contract, it caught me off guard because it seemed like we just had this conversation with DHS said that like things can't be amended. So unless maybe I'm missing some or not getting the right verbiage, I'm just curious of how a contract could be amended for different work. And it sounds like we just said that couldn't happen with Park Central.
I can try to speak to you a little bit.
Yeah.
The contract with North Newstead is what's referred to as a beneficiary agreement. Money is to go to North Newstead to support their capacity. Really, they're entitled to it. The problem that we had, though, in our existing contract, the scope of work didn't reach what they want to do now. And that's what we're amending.
So yeah, amending it to help what they want to do moving forward.
Yes.
So I'm sure if like Park Central said, could we amend the mortgage assistant to rental assistant, that would probably be kind of in the same.
It's just hard for me to speak to that.
Okay.
Yeah.
I can add a little bit of extra insight in this. I think also the contract for the mortgage assistance seemed to have ended during the previous administration, which is why that money was just sitting there. The money through a board bill could have been changed to mortgage and rental assistance before the end of 2024. But that did not happen. So it's not able to be changed now, especially now that there is no contract. You can't change a scope of a contract that has ended.
So basically the mortgage assistant one that we're reappropriating is because there's no contract currently for it.
Yes, that is my understanding.
Okay. Is it director or commissioner? Is it commissioner? Director?
Yes.
Also, if you could stay in the middle. I know you're trying to hear me. The TV can catch you if you kind of in the middle of the podium.
Okay.
We
I just have a hard time hearing in this room.
No, I'll get a little louder.
Yeah.
With the early childhood education, who was the provider?
I believe that is Child Care Aware. Right. And yeah, that's the entity's name, Child Care Aware. And I've spoken with the CEO and the deputy also at that provider.
Okay, because I know right now on the state level, a lot of child care providers are not getting state funding because of crazy Jefferson City. So is it that you're saying Child Care Aware have told you all directly? Because I have also been hearing, I'm just going to be honest, I've been hearing from some of these items that are on the paper, different stories from what is being brought to us today. Did Child Care Aware not be able to spend this money down before the year 2026?
Right, and they didn't really share with me why that was necessarily, Alderman. But I appreciate their candor in coming to me, and of course, we essentially reached a partial termination agreement so that we can move on.
Okay. And I definitely believe you, but I will personally just be following up just to make sure that that we can not get those funds. And so that I'm clear on the the neighborhood beautification capacity, what you're saying is the North Newstead, and I think Alderman Browning was clearing it up, but I just want to be very clear. Because at the end, I think what the chairwoman was saying, at the end of the beautification, you did say for North Newstead that you was going to amend that contract too. So are you only amending one contract for North Newstead, the beautification one, you plan to take that money?
Correct.
Okay. No more questions.
Just while we're on it, just because we have to be clear, we're looking at what's in front of us. Are you amending the contract for $274,308.92?
No. The amendment is on the 223,811 number, which you may have there, but I understand it has been pulled from what is before the committee at this time again.
That is in the committee substitute because it was lined out. I didn't include it on the fact sheet. Sorry for the confusion.
Okay, that's what I'm like. I'm looking at it. Okay.
No, it's not on the fact sheet.
All right, thank you. Vice Chair Sanye.
Thank you for being here today. I appreciate the conversations we've been able to have just since the original filing of the bill, and I appreciate the amending of the contracts for North Newstead. In general, can you speak to what the communication process was between CDA office and letting grantees know that their funds would be terminated and how that process went? Was there someone assigned to make sure that communication was had with these organizations, or what was that flow of communication?
Right. So the process I followed essentially, is particularly on the zero spends, was to essentially send them an intention to terminate the contract. And again, I got some feedback on that from people like Child Care, where it's a good example, who called me and said, well, you know, we think we can spend down 125 and not the full 570, and we began the conversation.
What's the timeline? When did that communication begin?
Oh, late December, early January. And that process essentially would be the same for all of the Urban League. I reached out and spoke to Michael Holmes on that one directly. But that process is pretty much what I followed. And then, of course, I'm always willing to have a conversation if I've got the facts wrong. But with the zero spends, it was pretty obvious to me that that's what they were going to be, at least initially out of the box. North Newstead was different because North Newstead was chugging right along, having spent 40–50% of their award already. But when Constance Sue came down to see me, their CEO, to inform me they were NBC program under the ARPA programs, well, then I was acted after that. That would have been early January, by the way.
Okay. Can you continue on the timeline on communications? When did you let organizations know that their funds terminated? How was that correspondence sent? Was there someone that was supposed to be in charge of following up with the organizations?
We began, it was early January that their CEO came to see us.
Not North Newstead in general.
I'm sorry?
Not North Newstead in general for the process of
No, just North Newstead. I think they're.
I'm not asking specifically about North Newstead. I'm asking in general about the flow of communication for contracts that were terminated from your office. So you said that you began communications in late December, early January. When did you begin to notify organizations that their contracts would be terminated? And was there someone assigned to follow up on that communication?
Okay, so December 16th was the first day that I sent out several terminations on that day. And most of the programs here.
You said you sent out several terminations on December 13th?
December 16th of 25, yes.
And when is the latest that you would have notified organizations that their funds were going to be terminated?
Ask that again, I'm sorry.
December 16th was when you started. When is the last letter that you sent notifying organizations that they would be terminated?
That was that day on December 16th.
Sorry, I don't know if my question is not clear. Not the first, like that's when you began, but like when would the what's the last time that an organization got a letter notifying them? Like, what's the latest time period? Would somebody have gotten a letter that they're terminated last week? Would someone have, what was the latest point?
Oh, I see. So probably mid-January would have been the last termination letters I sent out, and that would have been the North Newstead program. Everything else went out on 12/16 of 25 is my memory. And then we had a recent, one of the Horizon Housing Awards contacted us fairly recently, I would say within the last couple of weeks, and essentially indicating to us that they were not going to spend the money and essentially consenting to us repurposing it.
Okay. And there's a line, I think on the exhibit is 71592. It's neighborhood beautification, capacity building, operation support for CDCs. So I know we talked about the North Newstead line item, but I'm also just curious, are you saying that there was no ability for CDCs to spend funds to support them for capacity building, operations, and neighborhood beautification in the amount of $633,000 that with the 10 plus CDCs we have in our city, many who are in the tornado impacted area, that they did not need these funds or weren't unable to spend these funds down by the contract deadline?
I don't know how to answer that.
Yeah, I can help with that one. These were contracts that were had specifically with each one of the organizations. So the contract wasn't with CDCs in general. The contract was with North Newstead, and you can't transfer a contract with North Newstead to any other CDC.
The full $633,000 was with North Newstead?
No, the other amount was to SLACO.
Oh, you're saying the 633 was to SLACO?
Together, it's to SLACO. North Newstead and SLACO together is that number.
479 out of the 633. And there was no option to pivot the contract from SLACO to the various other CDCs that we have, and there was no other applicants that were CDCs that applied for this fund. SLACO was the only way to move these funds.
I'm not sure if there were no other applicants, but at this point in time, because the contract was with SLACO, we can't transfer it to another organization.
When did we, do you have an idea of when we would have known that SLACO was going to be unable to do this?
I don't know if there is any indication for that. That is something that was previous to the current director.
Okay. Thank you.
Of course. Thank you.
All right, does anyone have any follow-up questions for Mr. Moat? Okay, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Are there any general questions before we move to OVP? Great. You're up.
I'd like to think that they saved the best for last.
Just speak into the mic so that way people online can hear you.
Good. Yeah. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen of the board. My name is Marvin Tier. I'm the commissioner, and all our citizenry out there. My name is Marvin Tier. I'm the Commissioner of Violence Prevention, the newly installed, now in my third or fourth month, and this is not gonna work. Can you hear me? Okay. Yeah, no, because I'm gonna need to refer back and forth, so I'm not very good at the entertainment. So OVP, and if the members of the board are amenable, I've brought a lot of my staff with me who are intimately, equally as knowledgeable about our contracts and our partners. We are here today to discuss the remainders and recommendations that OVP has made to some 33 ARPA-related contracts. We received some $22 million $500,000 and change in total funding, of which some only 10% could be remaining and left unable to be spent within our time frame. Some $2,328,000. To that effect, we have gone through, and I really have to give a great shout out to my staff and the staff at OVP, because they have done a really deep dive into all of our providers that we have out there. And we have found that we have 10 vendors that are going to have issues with spending down the remainder of their contracts. And if you'd like, I can go through them line by line. All right, Urban League. Urban League does a lot of neighborhood stabilization, block unit meetings, and received some $667,558. To date of the last period, there was $201 of paid invoices with an average monthly spending of about $18,450. With that, we have anticipated that there will be a remainder of some 21% of that total 667,000. That really comes out to about $82,000 or $83,000. In fact, we received from the Urban League in December a projection that they would have about $82,000 left over that they knew that they would have to turn back into. But we only recommended diverting $70,000 just in case, just to give them a little bit of a breather. Covenant House received $1,373,011 with paid invoices of about $502. Covenant House had a program that they had designed to do and work in conjunction with the police department for young juveniles who had somehow been caught up into the criminal justice system, but they didn't want to drop them off into the juvenile system. So this would be a drop-off center for young adolescents who were unhoused and were in trauma. Their average monthly spending was $45,663, with a remaining of 27% left and remaining, so that we have recommended repurposing $370,000 of their funding. Gecko, they were doing Pell Grants for using Pell Grant recipients. Many times they needed to find housing, and that housing would be outside of the money that was available to them in order to utilize for some kind of off-campus or on-campus housing situation. With that in mind, they had received $1,476,000 had been paid. We had invoices or average monthly spending of about $29,805, which would have left about 22%. Some $200,000 is what we have recommended that we would repurpose. In each of these instances, we have always left a little bit more taken, or at least recommended less than what we think the projections would be, just in case that there were some issues for these entities in funding. Northside Youth and Senior Services does an after-school program. They had limited seating. I think they only had accommodations for about 20 kids based upon what their facilities provided. I think they have since upped that number, but again, to them, some $414,000 $505,000 was appropriated. Of that, we had paid invoices of $191,000 with average monthly spending of about $11,900. With pending invoices, they were still looking at about a 30% remainder that we had recommended to repurpose. And if I have my lines right, that's about $80,000 that we recommend to be utilized due to that remainder. Youth advocacy, they deal with children, youth who are in juvenile detention, and whatever issues may come up with regards to that juvenile detention once they're released, how those support services can be provided. There was $1,685,374 appropriated, 587 and 152 of paid invoices with average monthly spending of about $36,697. There were some pending invoices of about $90,000, but that still left them with a 38% remainder. We have recommended $550,000 be repurposed. Let's see, Guardian Angel. Guardian Angel did youth programming, job training. They did some kind of therapy, youth therapy, and worked for family stabilization. They were appropriated $290,000, of which only $71,000 had been spent, with average monthly spending of about $5,000 a month. We have a number of pending invoices for about $42,000, but once, even with all of that is estimated, they still would have some 50% of their budget unspent. Again, we have made the recommendation that some, I believe, $70,000 be appropriated due to the remainder. Let's see. Safe Streets, Safe Neighborhoods, Lisa LeGrone and her organization, those are our street interveners who are right there on the ground when there are shootings and homicides. She was appropriated, her organization was $652,500, $276,023 in paid invoices, with an average monthly spending of about $16,236. There were some other $16,000 in invoices outstanding, but still there was some 32% that was not projected to be spent. We recommended then that $200,000 be appropriated and repurposed. Washington University does wound care and therapy aftercare for shooting victims. They were appropriated $1,107,273. $535,341 were paid invoices, average monthly spending of about $38,238. We received and have some pending invoices of about $87,474, but we realized too there that there will necessarily be a residual of about 12%, of which we have requested 120 be repurposed, if I've got all this right. Lastly, Youth in Need. They're an after-school program. 119,793 was appropriated, 43,000 in paid invoices, 43,330. Probably about $3,000 to $4,000, as I've indicated, in spending per month. Outstanding invoices of about $3,000. So that's some 36% that we believe to be repurposed since it probably will not be spent. So we recommended a $40,000 allocations. And then lastly, Connections to Success. They were, I'm losing myself here. Connections to Success, they received some $853,999, 390, 702 in paid invoices, average monthly spending of about 27,907. There were some pending invoices of about 41,114, of which we believe some 16% will be a remainder, and so we have suggested and recommended 140,000 be reallocated. That will be their remainder. I'm happy to entertain any questions that you have. Oh yeah, behavioral health is on there too. And that was the program that they couldn't even get done, if I correct. Would you come up for me? I'd like to introduce one of my senior program managers, Ms. Claudine Allen.
Hello, I'm Claudine Allen with the Office of Violence Prevention, Program Manager 2. On the BHR program, that money was allocated when BHR was under ARPA. They were then switched to general revenue. Those funds could not be sent over, so there was already funding for them under general revenue, so that funding was never allocated.
That's what I thought. Questions?
Thank you for that clarification. That makes that one make sense.
And what I remember, they didn't even know that they had the money.
Yeah, that one definitely makes sense because that was a flag for me. I deal with BHR too in the community. Alderman Cone.
Yes, sir. It's my pleasure.
Alderwoman Keys. Alderman Browning.
Thank you. Just curious, and I know the answer might be different for each of these programs, but in general, when were the contracts made with each of these organizations?
24? In 24.
In 2024, like
Yes.
early 2024, or? Okay, and so we're now 2 months into 2026. So they've had, if it was early 2024, we're looking at about 2 years to spend down this money, and you're judging the amount that the spend rate in that average of, you said, like, I'm looking at how much they're spending per month.
Throughout that entire period.
Throughout those 2 years, we're looking at how much they've been spending, and we're basing these estimates off of that.
That's correct.
And then have conversations been had with each of these organizations to understand, so they can understand that this money is one, something that they're not projected to use, and then have you gained an understanding from them as to whether they think that they can use it, whether there was a scaling up issue, or because when I'm reading through most of these, just to put a little more clarity in my question, I'm seeing that there's a variety of causes for like unspent money, whether it's, but the common issue that sticks out to me is staffing.
Yes.
That it is difficult to staff up. It's difficult to get programs up and running. These can take months, if not years, sometimes especially to set up a brand new program.
Yes.
So and each situation is a little bit different, but generally, is that mostly what was happening here, that staffing was an issue?
Almost universally, every entity since I've gotten into this space, staffing has been a constant thorn in their side, either to maintain or obtain really good trained staffing. Remember, a lot of the programs that our providers have are deeply intensive. Therapists, wound specialists, counselors. These are just not a lot of folks that you're just going to find in your everyday job market. And so some of them have had tremendous difficulty finding good, well-trainable staff. And I think that's universal across all of the entities that I've found.
And I think when we're looking at obviously these are all serving a population that we would describe as, I think, vulnerable or
Yes.
People that are a little less resourced, a little less advantaged in life. And that's a difficult population to serve as well. And so
Yes.
there's a lot of things that I think make it difficult to get these programs up and running and then reach everyone that needs that help. And then it's harder to do on a shortened timeline as well. So I can understand that. I know that we had some questions. I think I'm going to leave this to Alderwoman Saunier because I think she's got an organization that she has particularly want to ask about. But I'm curious to that organization as well. I'd like to hear kind of just the specific discussions that are being had to make sure that we're not taking away money that people feel they can spend, and that there's evidence that they can spend it, because we're 2 years in, and obviously we don't want to send this money back to the federal government by any cost.
No.
So I'll conclude my questioning there, but I might reserve some questions for later. Thank you.
Okay.
Alderman Aldridge.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Thanks, you Judge and Commissioner, for being here. Before I get to the organizations, the behavioral health, you said we didn't need ARPA funds because they was getting general revenue funds, correct? Are they typically getting, is this an annual general revenue that they getting general revenue on an annual basis, or was this a first time, or?
The last commissioner worked with them to switch them over to general revenue.
So in this up and coming budget, it would be also general?
Right.
Okay. I was just thinking, I'm like, if we got free money, why not use our free money instead of our own general revenue money? I guess that makes sense. So I want to get to some of the organizations, and I definitely think my colleague meant well, but I think words sometimes can, even more reason why we probably, for these communities that are underserved, need to figure out how we get these dollars to them to support areas that have been historically neglected, disinvested, and not supported. So let's get to the organizations. Urban League, 70,000. You said late on invoices, and these funds will not be used. So have the department or the city reached out to Urban League and asked directly, can you spend down these $70,000?
Yeah, in fact, I met personally with Mike and with James on other issues, but this as well, over at the headquarters. And we had been working with, I guess they were lacking a CFO for quite some time. And in that particular program, we hadn't received invoices from them for almost a year. And we got all of them in, and they gave us a projection either in November or December, because we started telling our folks early on that this is coming. You've got to spend even from the inception of their contracts, all of our providers were told, you got to spend this money because it's going to go back. But as early as November or December, they informed us that they would have in excess of 82,000 that was going to be left over. So we suggested only taking 70 rather than by their own projection. They said that they would have that much in residual funding.
The North New Side Youth and Senior Service, this program I just started, reached their number and becoming fully staffed. You guys recently also reached out to them and said that they cannot.
I mean, they were having, 20 students at one time was about their population.
They were having a lower number. They were also running another program through Arches that they were more focused on that program at the time. They didn't have staffing, and then the program at Arches is actually at the Peabody School, whereas the program that they have under us was at their particular building. It's a smaller facility, and they are having issues with transportation and getting the kids there. Then they had at least a month to 2 months during the tornado where they didn't have any programming because they were trying to help the community.
So yes, that you have reached out to them recently, and said, and
Yeah, we reach out with every organization monthly. They have a program that they have, a program report they have to send in.
Judge, and I know you knew, when did a conversation happen with you that the administration came to you and said we need to reappropriate funds or for OVP?
That started around August, September.
Okay. And when did you guys come up with the decision for the cut of some of these organizations?
So we met monthly with the program, with the city to make sure that we were going over, making sure that people turned in their invoices and also talking with them about their funding and making sure that they're spending their funding.
I just want to get a little bit more detail. When did you talk to Urban League about the cutting of the 70,000?
Well, the actual
date probably was in September or October.
I just started,
September, October, real quick, Judge. So there hasn't been a recent conversation of 2026, as we have a board bill in front of us, to revisit the conversation of where you guys at on the spending of the funds. You, after September, October, the conversation stopped, and you just said, well, they're not going to spend those. We
met with them monthly. They said that they had to still work on their invoices. We explained what was happening, and they said they needed to get their invoices in first. So we said, okay. They did not get their invoices into us till January
So January of
2026.
Did you speak to them after January 2026?
We got those, and then we were telling, we now have to go and process a year's worth of invoices, and that we still had to see how much they would have left after that.
And so did you let them know in January 2026, a month ago, that you was going to take the 70,000 after the invoices were submitted?
We said that was a possibility. I didn't tell them.
So do they know right now at this moment that $70,000 is at risk?
Yes, they received the letter on February 13th.
Wait, hold on. Hold on. They received a letter on February 13th?
A formal letter on February 13th.
well, no, she just sent out.
The bill was filed on February 13th.
Oh.
Yeah, she just sent out. Now, I need to correct. We notified everybody well before then, in January, what was going to happen. I delayed sending them notice, trying to get more invoices in. I just sent them this past week a termination letter, certified, so they knew. But
So I think I'm trying to figure out, when did they get final notice?
They knew in December, because again, they gave us their projection that they knew they weren't going to be able to spend all of their funding in November and December.
So when they submitted,
Knew that.
So when they submitted the invoices in January, I heard there was conversation, I heard there wasn't conversation. Did you follow back up with them and said, after they submitted the invoice, what did that conversation look like?
After we submitted the invoices, we said, okay, we're going to go ahead and go through all of your invoices. We had to go through all of them. Some of them had to get more information because they did not have the correct paperwork and everything like that. So we went through all of that, and they said, then we will talk, then we are going to be meeting with the comptroller's office and so forth, and then we would get back to them.
And also, I want to be very clear, I'm not trying to pick at you all. This is, honestly, I think this is a department that probably needs the money to actually, support these communities. When you talk about Office of Violence Prevention, you're talking about an office that is going out directly, working with organizations. I've recently just got several calls from organizations that are in fear of losing funds from this department because the work that they do is now up in jeopardy. So this is not this is not at you all. I just want to make sure that I'm comfortable going back to my neighborhood and saying, while water is important, I also think in these challenging neighborhoods, it's also important to make sure that we have additional resources to unchallenge them, if that makes sense.
Absolutely.
And $70,000 does not seem like a lot of money that a program could spend down before 2026. When you're talking about millions, 600 or 600 some thousand, 700 some thousand, that makes sense. We're talking about 70 some thousand that you're saying cannot be committed. And I know some of this also is politics of, we're trying to find money for an entity that is extremely important, but I'm not trying to rob Peter to pay Paul either. And I get the going, so let me slow down.
If I can help you, Alderman, the $667,000 that they had received They even acknowledged with all their best efforts, after going through and knowing they had these outstanding invoices, they even admitted that they didn't think they could spend, they would have a remainder of 82,000 that they informed us of.
I'm just saying, I'm hearing different stories from organizations. I'm hearing different stories of what was just said, of like a letter was sent out on the 13th, or a bill was also filed on the 13th, or invoices was sent in January. So when we know that these organizations, after invoices, I would love to see like what plan of action was worked to say, how do we get you there, right? And not how do we just take it back, right? But is there a process to get you there? And from the Urban League one, I'm a little confused on that one, but I guess, and I'm a yield a little bit to the Alderwoman after this one, because I got to be careful. With the passion, I don't want to say something that come off the wrong way. For Northside Youth Senior Service, when was they contacted?
They were contacted starting in September.
When did they get final contact that their termination was going to be terminated, or that the department was going to terminate their contract?
I just want to add something just to that question is really important. I think a lot of these contracts aren't being terminated, and I just want to make sure that that's clear. It's contracts, certain amounts that they don't believe can be spent of the contract. So some of these amounts were much larger contracts, and there's a certain amount that they don't believe can be spent. So I just want to make sure that's the language we're using.
Whatever language, we don't have to say termination, I'll say allocation. Make you feel better, Alderwoman?
Yeah, it's just a real portion of a contract that can't be spent by the deadline. Is just what's happening. Because I don't want anyone listening to think that contracts are being terminated if they are more that, a certain amount is projected based on monthly invoices. That, if a monthly invoice is coming monthly and they tell us that this is how much they're spending on staff, this is how much they're spending on the program, we know how many months are left in the year, and there's a certain amount of money that's going to not be able to be spent based on clear records that are coming in. That is the money that we're talking about. So I just wanted to flag that because these are not contracts that are being terminated unless that is specifically stated by the department.
Great. I think that opens back up. Let's go back to Urban League then, since they're not terminated. How much money have they spent so far? How much was they allocated and how much have they spent?
$667,558.
Was what they was allocated?
Correct.
How much have they spent?
$295,201.
And you feel, and how much is that remaining?
Well, we had, just to tell you, there's average monthly spending of about $18,450. We received then $47,012 in invoices. Then we had another pending $140,000. And so that was going to give them a remainder of that $70,000.
So it looks like they're catching up. You all projected that they was going to spend about 15. Sounds like maybe they just didn't get invoices in, and that
Well, no, by their own projection, they thought that they would not spend $82,000, that they informed us of, that they would have that overage, that residual. But we didn't recommend
So
that.
to date of the pending invoices that you guys just got, and we know that our process moves slow in the city of us actually paying people back.
It does.
Why people, all the women saying you got to be able to hopefully fix that. How much have they spent to date? Even with the pending one?
I think they are right at about 190.
So in total of that six, when I mean.
About 500, well, my math is off. I'd have to do my math, but there's about 357,000 they've spent to date.
Is this with the pending 100 one that just came in?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
And they have confirmed to you that they will not be able to spend that 70. This is what they confirmed to.
That's what they told us in their spending, because what we tried to do.
If you speak in the mic.
What we tried to do is walk through with each and every organization that was in jeopardy or somehow we thought they weren't spending enough. Let's develop a spending plan. Let's try to come up with a solution to help you get to where you need to get
And in
to.
that spending plan, it was confirmed that,
Well, yeah, if they ask for it, yeah.
in that spending plan, this is what they inform Office of Violence Prevention.
Yes.
We can't spend this
Work
70.
with them to do that, to get to this point,
And that conversation happened.
monthly with them.
So in October and November, we did spend downs with them, where they literally went through and talked about what they were spending and what they anticipated.
So that's the thing I'm trying to figure out, is that gap of October, November, spend down conversations happen, right? I think, as we know, like, months can make a difference if things start spending and, you know, things change. Since November, has there been a conversation in December of January of a spend down plan to support and figure that out?
Well, that's where they gave us the numbers of what that was, the 82,000, so.
And that happened
And that's November, December. And then they were literally working on getting in, which we got those in January.
And then, because I think that I'm getting confused with the dates a little bit. So in January, after they got that invoice in, was there an additional conversation last month? Hey, we need to figure out a spend down, or did y'all just make an executive decision that it's not going to happen?
No, that's where they had already told us about the 82,000. They had already told us. And then even with we said, bring all your invoices in, they said, okay. And then they got the invoices in January.
Okay. And
Under that, we still did.
if you speak in the mic.
But with that in mind, we still didn't take, even though they said they'd have 82,000, we figured there's always you're gonna need some padding, just in case anything could happen. So let's project at 70,000, just to make sure that you had enough residual for whatever unencumbered or surprise things may come up.
Yeah. And that's why I guess, even earlier we heard that there's a potential that there may be another ARPA bill, a reappropriation where we come back. So I'm trying to figure out, when I also look at this, they were talking about summer youth jobs, right? Is that what the category is under? Summer
That's
youth?
that's the new proposition.
Summer year-round youth programming. I know we're not in summertime right now, so it's probably hard to get those balls rolling, but if we heard that we got another potential ARPA bill coming in March that was said, May when we come back, I would assume that summertime, money gets spent as young kids are out of school in that time, and then we get to summertime and then they don't have no money to spend because we just assumed, or we didn't assume, we did the walkthrough and figured out, well, it's been a little slow in the cold weather, sure, but we are about to come to warm weather where it would have seemed like that money probably would roll out a little quicker.
I think that there are a myriad of different scenarios, Alderman.
Can you get into the mic just a little?
I think there are a myriad of different scenarios, Alderman, that in one way or another can affect how all of our providers function. And things like the tornado, things happen that can necessarily impact your organization in a really substantial way. But we have done the best that we can with each of our providers to make sure they both understood that this money has to be utilized in some way or it's returned. And that's been done, as my understanding, from the very beginning, and then also working with them in any way that we can to help them find new ways to utilize their money within their contract.
Got it.
And it does hurt, but I think we also have to be good stewards of the gifts we've been given. And so I have an obligation to help my providers do the best that they can to try to realize that product that they're putting out to all of our neighbors and on their providers. So.
I have the utmost respect for you, Judge. And I also, I want to make sure we don't leave one ARPA fund on the table, but I also don't want us to do reallocations without, from what I'm hearing from the organization, may not be the same of what I'm seeing in front of my face. And that we're doing our due diligence, as this one is a summer youth program, and we're about to enter summer. And again, we will have another opportunity, and it sounds like even coming in May, to do another Rams bill where we can reassess if these funds are actually going to be spent before we just start, unfortunately picking and choosing because as we want to help water, we're going to hurt somebody else.
Understood.
Could we get to the Northside Youth Senior Service Center?
And what question do you have? Tell me.
Similar question. So when did, I guess, the Northside Youth and Senior Service Center get contacted that the work plan is what it sounds like?
So every month we meet, we have a program, they have a program manager, the program manager meets with our CS2. They meet every month and discuss programming. They're supposed to give our numbers, they're supposed to talk about how they're spending, have they turned in their invoices. All their invoices are due on the 15th of each from the month before. So they receive that information pretty much starting from the beginning, what you need to spend down, what needs to happen. The spend down conversation started in October and November, where we said we need to start having you look at what are you spending, are you going to, what is it going to look like as far as we get towards the end of the contract. We wanted to make sure, because we're entering the last months of the contract, that they kind of know what they're spending and what's kind of going on.
When you say enter the last months of the contract, when is their contract? So we don't use the word terminated. When does their contract
Their
end?
contract, the ARPA contract that they have, I believe, ends in September 30th of 2026.
And is that the same for the previous organization we talked about? It ends in September?
We don't have all of them on the same date.
Okay.
Some of them starting in June. The ARPA contracts are going to start ending.
Gotcha. Going back to the Northside Youth and Senior, the walk down or the conversations with the organization and you all, the spin down started October, November. When did, I guess, a decision get made from them or you all that after the spin down that they're not going to be able to get the 80 out the door?
As far as having a conversation with them, we said when they talked with the spend down, so they were well aware of how much money they had left over. We talked about, we asked them to kind of do a budget reallocation to see if that was an opportunity. They wanted to have more clients, but they did not have the space. They talked about possible, right now they had gotten all their staff. They asked if they could raise staff rates and take it outside of the contract. That's not an opportunity for that. So we didn't have a lot of options for them.
So when did that conversation happen that it is not, we have to look at moving those funds, that 80,000 away from, reallocate that 80,000 from the contract with you all? When did that conversation happen?
That was started December and January. It started in December and it continued when we had their monthly meetings.
In January. So the final decision was made in January that the office said, and I don't know how those processes goes with you all, but you all said, hey, 80, we look and see that you're not going to be able to spend it, so we may need to like reappropriate these ARPA funds.
Yes.
So that we spend everyone. That happened in January. Was there a final decision made to that organization when were they officially notified that this is a step we're moving forward with?
So I sent out emails a week ago, 2 weeks ago, and then I sent out certified letters last week because I wanted to make sure that everybody was notified in whatever possible means was available to us, and that they got actual notification. And we also tried to delay as much as we could to give everyone as much opportunity to try to create spending plans, to fully staff and/or find other alternatives.
So you sent out a letter 2 weeks ago and then certified mail?
Yeah, just last week.
Just last week?
Yes.
I guess the timeline of all this is just interesting. They've been told, I guess, that money is going to be moved, and with all like due respect, this isn't no shade at all. Just like it seems like from what I'm hearing from orgs is they recently was told that money was, being pulled back, and then here we are with legislation that was filed like in that same time.
We got spending plans, like in one particular case, we got spending plans.
And I heard the spending plans. I'm saying the notification that it's official, we reappropriating these funds away from you plan isn't matching that the money is going to be spent. So I
I see what you're saying.
Yeah, I understand that.
Well, to me, that whole spending plan push, that whole discussion each and every time. We've got to do this. In fact, I was just looking at one of our groups over at Covenant House. We had a long meeting with them way back in September, telling them that you may have as much as $500,000 left, and you've got to do this now. So I know what you're trying to ask, Alderman, the actual date that you got this notice for this amount, but this is not new news.
No, and I get, and again, and I'm a youth, like I've been telling you.
Point to keep doing this.
I get the spending monthly things was going on. What I am trying to understand is timelines of when the office sent a letter to the organizations and said, okay, we're officially reallocating. And the reason of that, because the timeline of when that happened and when this legislation happened seems to all happen very closely.
Yes.
Instead of, which seems to look
Thank you, Alderman Aldridge, and that's why we're taking this time in committee. Because if we
it's
don't
no,
get it
real
right,
quick,
when it
real quick,
moves,
Alderwoman Swites, it's not so much as, I mean, I get that we spend time in committee, but we're
Right.
also sending, I think, a message of like, as we file this bill, organizations also got aware that their money was like being reappropriated, and then organizations maybe reached out to all like, what is going on?
Right.
So we have a bill in front of us, but the timeline does not, especially for this one, you know, for this fund, I think all of them are super important. But the work that we're talking about taking away, you know, thousands of dollars from the Office of Violence Prevention, a lot of these organizations are like doing work, as somebody said, in most under communities. And I'm trying to make sure we gave the due diligence to these organizations. Yes, we could sit here and talk all day and do the work. If that's the case, are we going to, you know, maybe we should take these funds out to make sure that knowing that there could be an opportunity to spend these down to support these organizations. And I'm not saying it was anything, Ms. Ferrisby, for you at all. I know that you have absolutely supported water and, you know, want to make sure these ARPA funds get out like all of us. I'm just saying the timeline of when the organizations got in the same week that the bill was filed, we kind of didn't give the organizations any opportunity to do it, or they're not even here in front of us to say, is this true or not, or where that process ended. Not that anybody from any department is not telling the truth, but if there was spin down conversations, why can't those conversations continue to happen? And right now what's in front of us is to reappropriate their funds.
and I think those conversations are still happening. I can speak for myself personally and from people I've spoken with on this committee, the departments, the mayor's office. If people have any discrepancies with this amount, they need to reach out and talk to us, because this is the time where we're having this conversation. And I'm hearing back.
I
from
would push back. We
organiza-
should have been
Alderman,
reaching.
do you mind if I finish?
Yeah, but it is my inquiry,
Ben, do you
Alderwoman.
mind?
I was
If I
actually
just
talking to
finish
the
my
judge. Go ahead.
I understand. Thank you, Alderman. You know, and I've heard from some of these organizations already, yes, this is the exact amount that we understand. This is what we said. Everything is correct. And I've heard from some organizations that they have questions about it. And that's why I'm not asking for a vote today, because I want to make sure that those conversations have been fully had, that the conversation is clear on every side. And will every organization be happy with the answer? I can't speak to that yet. But I think what we can figure out is that the conversations were had, the amounts agreed upon, and that we get this bill right, which is why I didn't take a vote last week, and I'm not taking a vote today. And every time anyone mentions an organization, anytime an organization is discussed, we are reaching out and asking them specifically if that conversation happened, what happened, if they have any discrepancies. And I know you are too, because that's what our job is. So I appreciate this, and I think that this is a good line of questioning for how the conversations have happened. But just in terms of your specific point on the bill being filed, you know, at the last day that we could introduce bills, that we could get all of that right too. So I'm certainly committed to do
Love
it.
about, so I want to go on record, this is not any kisses. One thing I love about the Alderwoman from the first, she do her due diligence, and she will not like push a bill through if it's not right. I would just say this is an interesting way to try to do shifting money around at the very last minute and then say, hey, if there's an issue, come talk to us. We probably should have been talking to the providers. I mean, because what we did is we filed legislation and we put them on blast that we're about to take your money or we're about to reallocate the funds without necessarily doing the full due diligence that, yes, now we're doing on committee, but we're having some really interesting conversations about monies and organization in the public limelight when maybe some of this could have been handled behind the scenes with some of the providers and some of the departments to actually say, before we file legislation and before we amend and say, actually, we were wrong, Urban League, or we were wrong, Northside, or we was wrong, Guardian Angels, and you guys could spend it, and then, you know, send a fact sheet out that says basically they can't spend it for this reasoning. It's an interesting way that it, and I know we had to file legislation because of last day, but I maybe more, and I don't think it's from you, Alderwoman, to be honest. I think more work could have probably been done from the administration side, working with departments just to make sure that this was actually correct before we put it in front of us and make sure that these funds are actually able to be spent or not spent before we rush to do a ARPA bill at the last week of like session just for water, which apparently we're gonna come back in May to do another ARPA bill anyway, when this could have been a holistic conversation about how we spend in this ARPA funds. And yeah, about an administration is gonna come back and ask us to spend more ARPA funds from another bill. It's just, the interest ones made sense.
Right.
But once you're reappropriating to do something quickly because water is important, I would say everything's on here important, and we got to make sure that it actually gets out the door correctly.
Of course, and I couldn't agree more with the need to do the due diligence and check line by line. And, you know, I think we've all been experienced with different bills that we've sponsored when something goes out into the public that there can be more discussion. I think we're hearing from departments.
I second that.
Yeah, I think, you know, I think that if we're hearing from departments that certain conversations were had, the timeline of those conversations, and, you know, it's definitely possible that a department's point of view on something and an organization's point of view on something could be different, which I think is one of the things we're trying to figure out today. So, and over the course of the next several days before a vote is taken on this, to make sure that those understandings are in line. Specifically, the organizations we're talking about now, I did reach out to the contact email that I could find for that organization to confirm that amount. And like I said, I've been hearing back from some that, yes, it's confirmed, and others haven't responded yet. And I know that we're doing the due diligence both on my end, the mayor's office is working on this. And I know aldermen are working on it too. So it is definitely a thing where the more we can get right or get agreement on before a bill is introduced, that's good. But some of this conversation does, I think, need to happen in public, because there will inevitably be discrepancies in what people have heard and what meetings occurred in terms of their perspective and someone else's perspective. And that's, I think, a good thing to have it aired out in public, so that people can watch the tape and know that all of these conversations were had and people were being as thoughtful as they could be about it. If you have any further questions for the mayor's office,
Hi, Caitlin Smith, Policy Advisor to the Mayor. I just also wanted to add in to make it clear that these conversations that OVP is talking about that they had was with the direct program manager of each program. And I think some of the confusion might be is that has not been fully communicated up the chain. And so when the letters were sent out, maybe it is the higher up officials that didn't know as much from inside of the organization. So I think that is some of the discrepancies that we are seeing. But OVP did work really hard with each individual program manager and met with them several times and got their input on what they thought they couldn't use. And sometimes when you have $500,000, you can only physically spend so much. They only have so much money in the bank, and we reimburse them. They can't be taking out debt to be reimbursed. So there's sometimes only so much physically that these great organizations can spend in a month.
And I think what the other one, and I'm a yield, I think what the other woman said, it is good that this is on camera for the rollback and see, because while there have been ongoing conversations into OVP, thank you, the staff members and, you know, Commissioner Director, for the work that you are doing to help these organizations that need the help the most. While these ongoing conversations happen of spin down, what I just, again, will say is very interesting of when the letters was received to these organizations, if it was the top dog, the middle dog, the finance person, whoever received it, that it was in the same timeline of legislation being filed without, you know, working through, can this actually be spent down? That is my only point, because yes, I know those ongoing conversations are going, but this program that we're talking about summer jobs. We're not in summer. So you go and reach, if you're having these spin down conversations with an organization in December, you know, January, the cold months, yeah, maybe a little hold up. But once we get to March, June, and July, I bet it's going to be some young people that can use this money to get these funds out the door. So that's all that I am trying to say. And I'm a yield because I think I took enough time as it is.
Vice Chair Sonia.
Alderwoman.
Nice to see you, Judge Tier. You know, I just want to give the usual preferences that I know that you're new to the role and transitioning, and so I think maybe there is a cause to some of the discrepancies. We've kind of already answered some of my questions about the communications and the timeline with contracts and notifying organizations and letting them know. I had a few just general questions before I get into the specifics about the behavioral health provider line item. There's like no details. What was the project specifically for the behavioral health providers?
Oh, yeah.
So that was BHR. I'm going to be honest with you. That was the last commissioner that came in. All I was told is that the money could not be allocated over from general revenue and ARPA. So it's been sitting there. We were then told it was, when we went through all of the ARPA contracts, we realized it was there.
And do you know how much total was given to them?
So for the ARPA, I believe it was $262,000 for that one contract. They currently have a contract with under general revenue that works with the crew and CERT teams.
So we're saying that for 2 years, they've been sitting on $262,000 and not doing anything with it.
I don't even think they knew.
Okay. I'm gonna just go to the next thing. For the safe streets, safe neighborhoods, was the award part of an RFP application that listed the staff size, or I just wanted to understand a little bit more about the discrepancy there?
I'm sorry, please repeat.
Safe streets, safe neighborhoods, the line item says the staff is smaller than expected and we're able to use other funding sources that are not invoice-based. So I'm asking, was their award part of an RFP application that listed the staff size? Or where did we get the indication of what their anticipated staff size would be?
So it was in the contract that their staff size, when they first initiated the contract at the beginning of 2024. As the program went on, they staff size did not, or I guess they really didn't get fully staffed.
And do you know how much the total contract was for them?
Safe Streets was
$652,500.
Okay. And for Washington University, what, I have just a similar question of what was the program and what was awarded total?
So $1,107,373. That was for the WashU program. They do critical intervention when people come into the hospital and they have had gun violence or any sort of violence. They go and do bedside care, working with them to set up aftercare, as well as work with them in the hospital to make sure that they have safety once they leave.
And switching gears to Covenant House, do we know why they shut down in the first 6 months or what the issue was there?
So the initial program, of the people who brought the program together, Covenant House, the national organization, felt it did not coincide with their overall programming, and they initially fired the entire staff.
So when you're saying like a buy-in, you're saying like a buy-in from the national chapter, from the national organization.
Right, the national organization.
It was an idea that was outside the parameters of their guiding principles. It was not something that they did.
Okay. And then for youth advocate programs, it says that there was an overestimation identified. Do you know when that was identified?
When they were going through their, when we asked them to kind of go through, we asked like in October, November, all the programs to start looking at their programming and allocating or figuring out what was going to happen to the end of their contract. So they started realizing that they had an abundance of money that they were not going to be able to spend. They were asked to kind of look at their budget to find out if there was any real reallocation they could do and things like that. So that was.
Okay, excellent. And then for the Pell Grant line item, what are the 2 universities that were supposed to be administering these funds?
There were actually 4 universities.
Okay, it says 2 on our paper, but what were the 4?
So that was UMSL, Harris Stowe, St. Louis Community College, and Rankin.
Maybe you only listed 2 because there's only 2 that couldn't administer. Do you know which universities were able to do it and not, or what the total contract was?
Rankin never used any of their money because the staff person left, so they never had the staff person in place to do the paperwork. Harris Stowe did use all of their money. St. Louis Community College did not use a lot of their money, and UMSL didn't lose a lot of their money.
Thank you. Okay, so getting back to the nitty-gritty, I think we've already kind of covered the February 13th timeline. I just would echo a little bit of the Alderman Aldridge's sentiments. I think because we had the legislation deadline, it probably made it tricky, but I know, like me personally, I definitely prefer for us to do some of these things beforehand before we get to record. I think it is great that we have relationships and have been able to talk to Alderwoman Schweitzer, but it's just a little bit uncomfortable for me when organizations are reaching out and asking me actively about something, and it's like, oh, we're taking a vote on this Tuesday, and I'm getting a call from the org on Friday, and they're like, hey, we know that you're going to be coming to our event. We just flagged this for you. Sometimes, because of our political processes, we kind of have to do what we have to do with the timelines we have, but I definitely have a strong preference, to work out as much as we can before it gets to the public, before it gets to, before we get to a camera rolling. I just prefer to kind of be able to give people clear answers when they come to me. I don't want to say, hey, I'm not sure about that. I'll have to ask in committee. I don't even prefer for most of our interfacing to be this way. I'd like for us to kind of dot our I's, cross our T's, be clear on this before we get to this, because I think it puts all of us in kind of an uncomfortable situation and kind of make it a little bit more adversarial than I prefer for it to be. With that, I did want to say for Guardian Angel, specifically who does work in the 7th Ward. I just had a resource fair with Alderwoman Cox Antwi. I was able to kind of talk to them because they were kind of my first original flag that shared with me that they got that letter on February 13th. They sent a letter that's really well documented and written out. So I don't want to, I will say to them, if they are watching, that the Alderwoman has agreed to hold on a vote today. So I think their ask was really for a pause so that we can have more clarifying conversations, and we are holding so that can happen. But I did also want to state on the record that they said that on November 29th, they actually submitted a detailed budget to OVP outlining their plan to fully expend the $290,327 that they were awarded. And they also stated that they have not received, they got the letter, they sent communication to us, but have not received a response to that communication.
So in November, they gave us a spending plan and a projection that they would be able to up their spending, thinking that normally they're only spending about $5,000 to $7,000 a month in total, in an average. In June, they were spending, their billing was about $3,000. In July, it was $7,000. And in August, it was $14,000. So when we went to them and told them about, you're going to have to really start ramping up your spending, they gave us a projection of $27,461. To date, The very next month, they only spent 14,000, and then 28,000, they did kind of reach it about a grand over, and then the next month, 20,000. So even by their own projections, and I know that they're working really diligently to try to get this out, but even by their own projections, there's going to be a residual. And we have to take that into consideration.
We have written comment in our email where they disagree with those. Like, they're not saying that that's their projection. They're saying that if the $70,000 is removed, they would be required to reduce the scope of services months earlier than anticipated, which would significantly hinder the agency's ability to implement its sustainable succession plan and carry the program forward, and that this would not only result in a premature reduction of the current program, but would also jeopardize its long-term success and reduce the number of individuals. Like I said, I don't know that we're going to come to an agreement. It could very well be that you all arrive at a different conclusion than the organizations. But what I am saying is that if we're going to send letters to folks terminating their contracts, we need to make sure that there is someone assigned to have those diligent follow-up conversations so that these discrepancies can be resolved. And I'm glad we're holding the bill, but all the organizations that I've communicated with said, we got a letter on the 13th terminating our funds. We haven't received a response to the communication that we sent. It could be a multitude of reasons. Some of them weren't even clear that we have a new director, right? Their last point of contact might have been Noel, or it might have been Mr. Pickney. Their organization's doing work, so they're not really sure how to navigate within City Hall. They're not really sure who's, when these changes happen, who to go to for what. So they will come to the alderperson that they know, and I will give them what I can. But what I'm saying to you all is that there needs to be some additional work and some additional correspondences with these organizations so that we're clear. So if you get to a point where you're like, hey, I understand that they're saying that's their projection, we disagree with that, and we're happy to walk you through their budget. I just think that's work that needs to happen, because these organizations they're not political. They don't have any understanding of our legislative process. They don't have any understanding of who's in charge, who to go to for what. They don't really understand that. And so I think we have to do our due diligence, and I'm always happy to and explain and fill those gaps, but I feel weird when I have to say, well, the committee hearing is on Tuesday, so here's the link, come. I don't even prefer that. I want to have a situation where I can bring the organization in an email, hey, Judge Tier, this organization reached out to me, let's connect, let's talk, let's have a conversation. I don't prefer to do that here. And there are several organizations that I'm very supportive of, very encouraging of, that I just don't want us to even end up in a situation with them where they feel like I got a letter terminating it, I haven't gotten a follow-up, and now the board of vote to cut my. That's just a terrible view, and that's how it looks from where they're at. And I just think it's incumbent upon us as the leaders in the space to figure out how we can best resolve that. I really think I can just kind of leave it there. I know there are some folks who are online to testify and speak as well about this, but that's what I'm just going to use my time to highlight, that there needs to be some due diligence and some follow-up with these organizations, and thorough walking through with their budgets and explaining what you want to use this for extra staff. That's not in the scope of the contract. That communication has not happened with them. They just got letters terminating whatever amount, and that's the last thing that they know. Thank you.
All right, do we have any additional comments? Okay. You have any closing remarks or anything? Okay. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the presentation, and thank you for all the questions. Do you have any other departments here, Ms. Smith? Okay. So with that, we were going.
I had a quick question about that then.
We were going to.
Oh,
well, we were going to do is have her walk through every other item that's on the list.
Okay.
Just not, the building division's not going to walk through their items, for example. It'd be the mayor's office walking through it.
Okay.
Or board of, yeah. Is that all right with Chairwoman? Mm-hmm. Okay. We'll move to that then. Thank you.
I've asked all of the directors to be on standby, so if we have questions, a lot of them only have one allocation, and I didn't want us to have 10 directors down here waiting for 3 hours to speak for 5 minutes. So we'll call them in when we need them.
You know what, since we're holding it, that's what I was concerned about. So since we're holding it, Policy Director Smith, can we go ahead and go to public comment?
Yeah, we can 100% go to public comment, and then we can come.
And then you can circle back on that. I definitely would, because for the record,
Yeah.
you know, on the record. But I did want to. I think Alderwoman Sonia is getting messages that some of the people might have to hop off, so I want to be respectful of that as well.
Makes sense. I would like to, I know you said this, I just want to go through it today, so that way if there's any questions, we have the week to get it, and that way we're not waiting next week and trying to figure out anything last minute.
Absolutely. Anybody in the room that signed up for public comment, can you raise your right hand? Swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth. Okay, we'll start one in the room and toggle back and forth, get the one online. Everybody online that's signed up to speak, can you turn your cameras on and raise your right hand?
Let me promote them over.
You raise your hand, the clerk can see you, and then you'll be able to turn your cameras on, and I'm trying to swear everybody in at once so that she can just keep continuously calling names.
Okay, it was 2 people online,
Okay.
and they're over on the other side now.
Are they coming over? Oh, okay.
They're online now.
Okay,
Alderwoman.
everyone raise your right hand, swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth. Right. Thank you. Please proceed. Make sure you say your name. Yeah. And make sure you state your name and the organization before you get started, and then the clerk will call you up.
All right. Abdul, Executive Director, Park Central Development. Thank you, committee, for having me. I just wanted to really touch on 2 points that I heard. Wanted to just kind of give a little bit more detail regarding the mortgage assistance program that went out with ARPA. One of the things I think that needs to be clear for the committee, and I think the community to understand, is those funds, we have always done a very good job of marketing that program. That's something that the community had. The community has always known about, and there were 3 providers that were providing mortgage assistance funds. Those funds were actually pulled back from us in 2024, actually. So those funds have been sitting. The last check that we wrote for mortgage assistance was actually 2024. At that time, I have an email to the city that we did say that mortgage assistance had been going slow, and we had been meeting with them. One of the things that we began to do was to keep track of not only mortgage, but also mortgage and rental assistance. Under the previous CARES funding that went out in 2000, we were able to get out $300,000 directly from just Park Central and our portion of the program in about an 11-month period. And one of the things with the appropriation, it was allowed to do mortgage and rental assistance. But at that time, this was 1/4/2024, we sent a message back when there was about $650,000 that was still left there. We said at the time that this money still needed to go back and be reappropriated. And at that time, that email was sent to Amy Bickford. And we said that we had a request from $230,000 in rental assistance requests from the community at that time. So that money had been sitting there. So I don't think it's a lack of the marketing. I think it's more so a lack of getting the money back. There was a communication gap, I think, from what's actually happening on the ground that rose up to our funders, to our lawmakers, to our legislators. So I think that's one of the issues that we see. So I did want to make sure that I clarified that for the record. The other thing I wanted to really speak to is when it comes to CDCs, I know there was funding that CDCs, the $600,000 in capacity building was still there for CDCs. There were several CDCs when that money was actually sent out and there was an RFP for, that CDCs did not receive funding. I can speak about Park Central. We submitted roughly about $750,000 in requests for community building and as well as capacity building. That was in partnership with the Academy Sherman Park neighborhood, with which we have an MOU for. We did not receive those funds through the process. Not sure why. The answer we received was that there was not, we did not score high enough. So that was the only message and answer that we got, that our application didn't score. But there is a tremendous need on the ground right now, even in Academy. We recently met with their leadership in February, and there's still a need. And they laid out a list for how they see recovery. And they've asked not only Park Central, but the Integrated Health Network and other people to come and help them on the ground. So even within CDCs, there's still a huge need for staffing. There's still a need for data systems. There's still a huge need for other capacity building pieces that will help CDCs be sustainable. So as we kind of begin to go through and reallocate, I want to make sure that I'm advocating not just for those dollars to go to CDCs, and CDCs have to be a part of the recovery process of this city, because you have to have place-based approaches to the people who are there day in and day out on the ground. So those are just really the two things I wanted to make sure that was on record, and thank you for your time.
Mr. Shigog.
Hello, good afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you to this committee. Let me first off start by saying we give gratitude to the staff and the team members over there at the Office of Violence Prevention for their efforts in overseeing the appropriations that is funding such critical and important programs in our community. But I'm here to just share that the Urban League via the Federation of Block Units, through the appropriation that we have through ARPA funds, we understand the urgency, and we also understand the importance of ensuring that our ARPA dollars and our allocations is fully spent down. And we also have convened amongst ourselves to make sure that we have an adequate spend down plan to present to the Office of Violence Prevention. I also want to go on the record to include that, of course, the Urban League, our programmatic, our community engagements, our activities, continuing. And during about a year and a half, our team, even in the midst of our building being damaged, even in the midst of our team, that caused a lot of delays in getting our invoices submitted. We definitely apologize about that. And we have a meeting with the OVP team this week to discuss an appeal of this decision, because we are looking forward to ongoing conversations with Mr. Tier and his team to ensure that this $70,000 is put back into our grant so that we can use it to benefit the community through our programs and our outreach efforts. So thank you for allowing me or us this time.
Mr. Leon Treat.
Mr. Leon, Mr. Third, if you're speaking, we can't hear you. Are you on mute?
Okay, thank you. Thank you all. I wanted to thank you for all the energy and hard work that you're putting into this, and I really appreciate the process. I did have some remarks ahead of time that I wanted to make, but I think that some of the previous conversation that I heard is steering in that direction as well. I'm the executive director at Northside Youth and Senior Service Center, and a lot of the information that I'm hearing kind of took me by surprise. I have not had conversations with OVP, nor has my CFO been able to chime in about a spending plan. And so, and then additionally, after receiving the letter, I did not know that there was an appeal process that we could avail ourselves of. And so I'd like to take advantage of that because there are some things that I think if we sit down, we can clear up. And then I'm also sensitive to the idea that, you know, when we look at it and we look at the funds, and if we project out and then we find out that we cannot spend it all, then I would I would like to come up to what that amount would be that wouldn't hurt our program, but also would ensure that the city is able to spend all of the funds or reallocate them to an organization that could use them. But I would just like to at least be afforded that opportunity. On the record, a couple of things I wanted to clear up that I heard that I could speak to in more depth when I meet with OVP director. But one thing is we were open during the tornado. As a matter of fact, we were actually featured on several news stations about the services that we were providing to both youth and seniors during the time of the tornado. And then also, although our building is small, we do not provide all of our services under this grant are not provided in that building. Our job training program that we have serves nearly twice as many kids that were mentioned. So I need to find out what the where the miscommunication is in that. And so like I said, I think a lot of the opportunity to be able to speak a little bit more in depth and then come up with a spending plan that we can each agree with, so that we don't have to make decisions that will be hurtful to the program and thereby to the community that we serve. Thank you again for this time.
That's all the speakers.
Thank you to everyone who came and spoke in person. I've taken notes on everything that you said and do have emails out to all of you to make sure I can get your testimony in writing as well, so I can be sure that I'm hearing what you're saying and that we're making sure that all of the departments are able to communicate with you in a timely manner before this bill moves forward out of committee. So thank you for being here. At this time, we'd love to move through the rest of the appropriations on the list in the fact sheet, item by item, and Ms. Smith is here to do that with us. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you. Would you prefer that I go through everything and then do questions, or do it by department?
Everything.
Okay, sounds good. First, we have the Department of Health, in which it's a little over $100,000. 3 of the projects are very small. The community health workers, the project fully completed, it's $79.24. Project is completed, so this is just leftover funds after the project completed left. And then the vaccination, education, and marketing, 68 cents. And then the reproductive equity fund is 70 cents. Both of those are also, the project is complete. This is just what's left in the account. Going back up to the mobile vaccination clinics, that's $6,300. This was budgeted based on 2 per performance staff, but they only ever hired 1 person. So with that, this is the funding that was left over. And then dropping to the bottom is animal care and control of $7,135.42. And this is just based on the remaining supplies that they have. These funds are not needed. This was a year-long contract that they have from 2020, my understanding is 2025 for animal care and control, and this is what will be left over after that year. And to extend it for another year for a contract is not really, it technically can happen, but it is a lot of work and not worth the energy and time of the department and the organization for the $7,000 to extend it another. And they're weren't able to spend the money before that ended. And then but the behavioral health, that is the one that is the large portion of the funds, is both of the projects under this were contracted, have been going under their original budget. Employment Connections, we have $24,532.52 from them, and that is, they reached out, and that is the number that they gave. The Health Department, and then the other one is the Bilingual International Assistance Services, and they said that they cannot use $89,325.84. So that's the together makes the 113. Moving on, we have the Board of Public Service. This is basically just finishing out a lot of their projects. They have a separate line item for each one of their projects, and this is after they have finished paying out everything and the project just closed. These are the remaining funds. So we have intentional encampments. So the last little bit of this was not allocated for encampment location. So this is what is left over. The $5,334.15. Expanding broadband and public Wi-Fi. This project came in under the estimated budget cost, so there's $21,317.92 left. CJCC operational funds they have $345.51 left over. Just the program utilized all the funding that they could, and when they finished the program, that is all that was left over. And then the Recreation Center pool renovation. This project also came in under the estimated budget, so we have $3,766.41 left over after that. And then the SLMPD match for the Police Foundation. This budget also came under the estimated budget with $13,378 left over. And then the Central Industrial roof repairs came under the estimated budget cost, and we had under the estimated budget cost by $44,497.53. And lastly, very small 11 cents from the Carnahan air handlers, because the project came under budget by 11 cents. And then next we have building. This is the privately owned property stabilization fund. The contract was entered into in June of 2024, and that is when the stabilization of a structure on Halls Ferry Road was gone into, but that has now been terminated. That project was terminated, and so the invoices for that would have been created from this project would be around that $390,000. ITSA. Theirs was about workplace modernization and enhancements. This project has also concluded, and the funds were allocated based on how much they would spend with a consultant, but they spent less time than they originally estimated, and so it came under budget with $60,181. Next up is streets. There was a refuse pilot project. $1 million was appropriated to this project, but the contract was a lot cheaper than they thought it would be, and the contract that was entered into was for $216,000, and that was to look at the city and see how we could possibly transition in looking at our refuse routes. That left the $784,430 left over. And then we have the city councilor for their software management system. This also, the implementation has been slower than predicted, but the expenses were also lower than predicted. So when the office switched to a different vendor, they ended up having a little bit left over budget with $63,445. And then for Slate, we have their child support. And then this project has been completed, so the contract has ended. The project is completed with $44,385 left over. And then, yes, finally, we have under the treasurer, the guaranteed basic income. There was a lawsuit against the city that we could not continue making these payments, but we're allowed to have the administrative expenses. So The approximately $2.5 million was reappropriated under a previous ordinance, but the Treasurer's Office retained a small amount of funding to wind down the program and pay Washington University for their analysis of that program. The Washington University contract was smaller and came under budget, and thus we have the $11,215.61 left over. That is it.
All right, we'll go to questions. Alderman Cone. Alderwoman Keys. Alderman Browning.
No questions.
Alderman Aldridge.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Under the Health Department, Animal Care and Control, we currently do our care and control. Do we contract that out to Care STL?
That is my understanding, but it's from the general revenue, so it's a little weird there.
Based on the remaining supplies, these funds was not needed. For the animal control and care, was that funds, ARPA funds? Who was we giving those to? I know CareSTL is our provider.
Yes.
And I'll be shocked that they didn't need the $7,000 for any supplies, when I know some of us alders met with them and they was asking for money.
Yes, it was just the $7,000 wasn't enough to fulfill any gap. It's not the right amount of money. They need more money than that, and all of the things
And they
that
couldn't,
cost more than $7,000. That is my understanding.
so even though they needed more, they couldn't, from your understanding, they couldn't even spend down the $7,000 to buy some supplies?
My understanding is that this was used for shelter operations of only 1 year, and then the $7,000 was not significant enough at the point to fill any remaining gaps.
Is this contract still open?
Sorry.
Is the contract still open?
I am finding out right now.
And also, if we could find out if it's Care STL?
Yep.
I'm assuming it is because we don't do our own animal care control. We contract out from them. So unless I think the health department may do a little bit, but I know the health department give money to that. Yeah, so yeah, that would be interesting if you can figure out if that's contract still open and if that's for Care STL. CDA, we went through that. Board of Public Service. I don't think I had any questions there. Oh, yes, I did. Board of Public Service, Recreation Center, pools and renovation. That always seems to be a need in Capital Committee of needing. So I guess what is the reason we're not using ARPA funds to do some maybe capital improvements on pools and renovations?
Yes, this is for the updates that happened in 2022. It was my understanding is for very specific pools. They did the updates that were needed, and the $3,700 is not enough to wrap into another contract or be able to do anything. The structural issues at the pools is more than $3,000.
Okay, if we can get the pools of where those pools were, and just maybe the breakdown so that we know okay, well, all the money was used for Marquette, it was used for Tandy and all the others, so that's why that's kind of needed there.
Yeah.
SLMPD match for the Police Foundation. We gave the Police Foundation funds?
I don't have extra information on that.
Good.
I only asked for why it wasn't used and what was laid out on these. I wasn't asking about how they were used.
So we did give the Police Foundation funding?
I will ask the director, President Bradley. Yeah.
Okay. That'd be a good question for that. No question on building, I think Alderman Sonny may have a question on that one. For the streets, could you talk about this and maybe I missed it, the refuse pilot project? Like,
Yeah, my understanding is this was looking at our refuse routes because they're very old, as well as what routes can and cannot be changed to roll carts for if there's any desire to ever change to that.
our refuse routes, you said?
Yes. You know which route the
Oh,
trash-
roots. Okay, I'm thinking like tree roots. Huh? So this was just to look at the root process or something.
Yes. If you can, a lot of things, you know, there's more vacancy on a road or whatever, and some of the routes have, they haven't been changed in several decades, and there's been a lot of changes in the city of St. Louis since then, and just making them a little bit more productive will help all of our problems with picking up trash that we've had in the past.
And not saying we have to not reallocate it. It would just be interesting to know if that contract's open and was that contract, I guess, amendable to when you're thinking about routes, picking up trash and stuff like that. Could those funds been used for what alders get asked every year to provide dumpsters in which they don't, you know, go through? I would think that maybe, oh, okay, well, this could be a way to, you know, maybe support the refuse department if they're always, I mean, constantly ask each alder every year for the same amount of dumpsters, if that fits, I guess, in the same spirit of.
Yeah. At this point in time, it's too late to be able to do a capital fund to try to get a large sum of dumpsters or order trucks because they wouldn't be able to come. We don't know for certain if they would come in time, and then we would have to give back the ARPA. So if you order a truck now, typically stuff like refuse trucks takes a year or two to come to the city, and so it's just too late to do anything like
So
that.
you telling me if we order dumpsters, we won't get them to next year?
I'm not 100% sure on dumpsters. I haven't done that research, but I know for trucks that it takes years to get them in.
Okay. I was curious about the dumpster element of, I'm assuming if the pilot was like our route of our trucks going around to pick up trash of the items they fit in would fall, I guess, under the same contract. You know, we've heard that some contracts are very detailed where you can't change it, and clearly some are not, that we're reappropriating some for a CDA. So I'm just curious of, would dumpsters fit in that, and could that be a purpose for using that money for the city buying dumpsters for our refugee department who currently needs them?
I will ask that question.
Slate, the child care or child support, you saying that project's completed and that there's no more people in the city that need child support or support on child support?
The under this late, the contract has ended. So I don't know 100% what was why it ended earlier, anything like that.
Do you know when it ended?
No.
Could you figure that out?
Yep.
And I think Slate came in front of this committee before we started reappropriating, and they talked about additional funding, which
Mm-hmm.
I don't see, yeah, never mind. Yeah, if you could figure out when that ended, because I know Slate has been doing like really good with getting money out the door when they came in front of the HUD's committee. They're one of the departments that got the most money out the door, and we're not reappropriating funds to them like we are to other departments. I think that is all the questions I got.
Right.
Vice Chair Sanye.
Thank you. I think most of these really make most sense. I guess the only things that jumped out to me is just the animal care STL. It says that they're not in need of supplies. I just went on a tour with them where they were saying that they need new cages, they need outfits, because, you know, we have some employees that are animal, like even though we contract out for the shelter management, we have some employees that need uniform and things like that. I've had several conversations with them about rabies tags and other things. So is this saying that the animal care and control are not in need of any additional supplies?
I will reach back out to the director. I will figure out a little bit more if there's anything there. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I just got clarification that these were funds for the Department of Health that had not to administer, not necessarily a direct animal control care STL contract. But every single thing that you all are asking for, we're taking notes on, and we're going to get more kind of specific, concrete information to you.
Okay, I think it would be great to check in, because just for some clarity, when I went, they were actually, like, a lot of the animals were like several in a cage, not the best sanitary conditions just because of their lack of capacity. So I would imagine they have something they could use that for. And then there was a line item on here for the privately owned property stabilization program. And the answer to this might be no, right? But I see that the notes say that it's for House Ferry Road. Contract was entered in June 2024. Is there no way that this can be reworked to meet some of the need that we have in the tornado recovery areas?
To my understanding, with how Treasury guidelines are, it's no.
Okay. And then I would just kind of echo the road cart point. I don't know if it's doable or not, but I do wonder, like, why was it just $216,000 contractor? I know the seventh warders often ask about their ability to get road carts, and I do have road carts in certain places in the ward and not in others, but I know that it's like, I get asked about it all the time and have to tell them, like, that's not a decision that I can make. Here's the link you can click for a new dumpster, but I can't say it'll be a road cart. So I just wondered if that was PR'd or how that went, because I know there is a lot of interest in community for that.
I'll follow up.
Thank you.
All right.
Yeah.
Oh, Alderman Aldridge.
Thank you. One last quick question. Going back to the the health department with Care SCL, and from what it sounds like, Alderwoman, are you saying that went to the health department, not a organization? It would be, if we could, I guess, know how much did the health department get for that line item? Because I know right now, if I'm not mistaken, and correct me if I'm wrong. Correct me if I'm wrong, Caitlin, or anybody, because I don't know everything. I think the Care SEO get the way we pay them, is it through the health department for their contract? So even though they're, the health department don't do that, so I'm curious what money that we give the health department for animal control care, which Care SEO do it, that now we're saying that, like, that didn't go directly to Care SEO. So what money did we use on that for animal care that would have went to the health department that doesn't do that line of work? And how much was it and what was spent? And if it falls in the same, I guess, purpose, could we buy from the health department supplies for the contract that we have that support animal control, which is through the health department?
I will find out for you. What I am hearing is that you would, this committee would like next week to have the Department of Health, the Office of Violence Prevention, the Board of Public Service,
Streets,
and Slate here, correct?
Yeah, and I think Dr. Pearson was going to get back with us on, I don't know if that's between his office and Daly's office on that.
Real estate property tax assistance?
Yes.
Okay, cool. I will ask him.
All right. Alderwoman Schweitzer, did you have any closing remarks?
Thank you very much, Alderwoman or Chairwoman Clark Hubbard, and members of the committee. I appreciate your time going through all of this today. I know we've been here for a while, and the comments and questions are very well taken, and we'll work to get answers. As I've said numerous times, took notes on what you were saying, and we'll be working next week too on everything. So I appreciate the time today.
All righty. So for the record, Madam Clerk, Alderwoman Schweitzer has chosen to hold. Well, did you want to adopt this sub or you want to wait?
I'd like to wait and only
Okay.
adopt one committee substitute if we end up having more changes that are made.
Okay, great. That's what I was thinking too. So for the record again, I'm sorry, Clerk, Madam Clerk, Alderwoman Schweitzer is asking to hold Board Bill 161 in committee and be put on the agenda again for next week.
So noted.
Thank you. And I'll turn it over to, let's see, let me go through the agenda because that was our last, that was our last board bill. So I'm going to turn it over to Vice Chair Sanye.
Thank you, Chairwoman Clark Cover. You are recognized to speak to Resolution 39.
Okay, thank you. I have with me today Zoning Director Burton and her staff, just to give you a little bit of context on this. What we are doing here today is just the approval of the new rules, newly adopted rules and regulations that were adopted by the Board of Adjustments, just to give dates before they come up, because I've asked Ms. Hart-Burton to give a little bit of context on what the Board of Adjustments is and what they do for our listeners. I know we are all aware of it, but for the public. But so the public knows before she starts speaking, the last time this was done, a little history lesson, was in 2008. So they were last updated by the Board of Adjustments on July 23rd, 2008. And they were last adopted by the board from the floor on the Board of Aldermen without going to committee on September the 12th, 2008. And now fast forward after our ordinance that we put in place, 71994, Zoning Director Hart-Burton noticed that she needed to do this additional step, which we all approved, and have it, well, it could have been approved from the floor, but we are taking the additional step rather for us to come bring it to committee. I sent it to all my colleagues on January 30th. The Board of Adjustments rules and regulations that they adopted, so that if they had any questions, they've had a month to reach out to the zoning director and legal counsel, our city clerks, because we cannot make changes. These can only be changed by the Board of Adjustment, but we are only tasked with approving them. And then once they are approved, they hadn't been asked to be put on the website yet, because following, again, Ordinance 71994, after they are approved by us, then they will go up onto the website. The rules and regulations not only were sent to you all on January 30th, but they are also in front of you right now and in the drive. And so with that, I'm going to welcome up our zoning administrator, Mary Hart-Burton.
Thank you, Madam Chairman, members of the board. So just briefly, what the Board of Adjustment does, most of you know, but for the public, the Board of Adjustment, their main charge is, thank you, is to hear appeals from denials on occupancy and building permits from the building commissioner.
Ms. Hart-Burton, could you speak in the mic, please?
Thanks. And then also to hear appeals on subdivisions and consolidations from the president of the Board of Public Service. And they hear those appeals and they grant variances on those based on a practical difficulty or an unnecessary hardship. The board is a 5-member board appointed by the mayor. We're required by the zoning code to have a licensed architect, a licensed real estate broker, and then 3 members at large. We're also required to have 3 alternate members that act in the case that one of the permanent members cannot be present at a board. We like to have 5 members present because it takes 4 members or 4 votes for a quorum at the Board of Adjustment, not just a simple majority. So that's the Board of Adjustment. The good news is that the passage of Ordinance 71994 required us to have rules and regulations and to post those rules and regulations on our website. We have always had rules and regulations at the Board of Adjustment as part of the zoning code. The Board of Adjustment is to have rules and regulations, and then as an added step, their rules and regulations are adopted by resolution at the Board of Aldermen. So we've always had rules and regulations. They have not always been on our website, but once the new rules and regulations are adopted by this board, then they will immediately be posted on the website. As the chairman stated, it's been a while since we updated our rules and regulations. We had been operating under the direction of the city councilor's office. Once a year, we said to the board, are you ready to look at your rules and regulations? Do you have any amendments? And if they had no amendments, the city councilor advised us that we didn't have to re-adopt the old regulations. They just stood until such time that the board had amendments. This new ordinance passed by the aldermen does require us to update those. So we worked really closely, the staff, the Board of Aldermen, the Board of Adjustment, and our city councilor. The city councilor's office already had sort of a template of rules and regulations based on Robert's Rules of Order, and then our city councilor, Archer Mellon, took our existing rules, kind of put them into that format. And then there were 3 areas that the board identified that they needed some updating to. And one was some clarification about how the meeting process on a Zoom meeting, because obviously back in 2009, virtual meetings were not something that we were thinking about. Another area that we updated the board is we updated the requirement for submitting evidence so that we could get that evidence in a timely manner and then get that distributed to the board members prior to the meeting. And then another area that we updated in the rules and regulations was we created some consistency for the vote, because in some areas of our old rules and regulations, the vote required 4 votes. And then in some areas, there wasn't really a number required, so we had operated that it would just revert to a simple majority. And we decided to just, for consistency, make the vote 4 across the board. So with that, that's where we are with the Board of Adjustment rules and regulations. They're before you today. I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you. We will go through the committee in order of seniority for questions. Alderman Cone.
I don't have any questions. Just appreciate all of the various city departments, including yours, Mary, taking the time and going through and updating these rules per the various ordinances. So appreciate your efforts here and glad to get this across the finish line.
Thank you, Alderman. Alderwoman Keys, are you still online? She is?
I'm more senior.
She's no longer online.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure. Alderwoman Schweitzer.
Thank you. No questions.
Alderman Browning.
Thank you. Just want to echo our appreciation. These seem like some really thoughtful changes that you've gone through carefully and noted things that were inconsistent or needed updating, and that just shows some really good diligence, and I appreciate taking the time to make sure we do these things right, because it's important for the public to be able to trust in our processes, and that the openness with which we are not only updating the rules, but then passing these through our board, I think helps build that trust. So I echo Alderman Cohn's compliments. I really appreciate the work that your office does, and it's essential for our city to run well. And I think it's often a labor that goes unthanked, especially by the people going through the process who, are all just waiting to hear back about whether they get the variance or not. And I've attended several of these meetings where I feel for you all because it's a tough job, but I'm always appreciative.
Thank you, Alderman. Alderman Aldridge.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair, members of the committee. Ms. Mary Hart, thank you for being here, your staff, and just all the great work that you guys do at the adjustment. And echo everything that my colleague said, and thank you for working with the Alderwoman to make sure that this is kind of an updated thing that's on the website. And with that, Madam Clerk, I'd like to be added as a co-sponsor.
So noted.
And I don't have any questions. I read through, as the Alderwoman said, she sent this in advance. So I'm glad we're making updates that make sense. Alderwoman Clark Hubbard, you are recognized to close.
All right, thank you so much. Is this your pen, Mary? Thank you so much. Before we close, I do want to also take the time to publicly thank the members of the Board of Adjustments for the work that they do, the time commitment, a unique way that they serve the city of St. Louis. And with that, I'm hoping for your favorable consideration and do pass recommendation for Resolution 239.
I make a motion, we pass Resolution 239 out with a due recommendation.
It's been motioned by Alderman of the 14th, seconded by Alderman of the 9th. Madam Clerk, may you please call the roll?
Alderman Cone. Alderwoman Schweitzer.
Aye.
Alderwoman Keys. Vice Chair Sonier.
Aye.
Alderman Browning.
Aye.
Alderman Aldridge.
Aye.
Chair Clark Hubbard. Alderwoman Keys. We have 7 aye votes. We have 6 aye votes.
All right, thank you, everyone. Do we have any additional committee discussions? Acknowledgement of any written testimony?
We have 1 written testimony in opposition to Board Bill 161.
Announcements? All right, all members are present this afternoon now. So with that, I'll accept the motion to adjourn.
Second.
It was moved by Alderman Aldridge and seconded by Vice Chair Sonier with a call for previous roll with no objections. We are adjourned. Everyone have a blessed day.